would not be a stream if we didn't have technical difficulties, would it? It looks like my chat moved over. Anyway, good evening. This is your president speaking, not the clown in the White House, violating all of our national laws, our Constitution, and, of course, international laws. So, today is Tuesday, which means it's Domestic Affairs Tuesday, and I apologize. It has been hot today, and all I did is try and recuperate in the Oval here for as long as I possibly could. So, with that being said, we do have a lot to cover because, as always, this administration truly loves to, I would say, screw up, but that it doesn't even remotely come close to describing what's going on. What I can say is that the incompetence, the gross incompetence of this administration is serving one goal and one goal only, which is to hide from its own ineptitude, right? So how could incompetence hide from its own ineptitude? Well, if you continue to sling mud at the wall, something eventually sticks. Well, the thing that's sticking is the news, right? And the news keeps reporting on the mud that has been slung. So 2 weeks ago, we were discussing globally how Israel was committing genocide against Palestinians. And what we are no longer discussing is how Israel is committing genocide against Palestinians. And the worst part is it wasn't even that much effort to push that out of the news. The big, beautiful bill wasn't enough to push the Israeli genocide against Palestinians out of the news. No, something bigger had to happen. Something worse had to happen. So then we saw the assassination against the Milwaukee representatives, and that was bad, but it didn't push it out of the news. No. No, the only thing that can whet the appetite of our bloodthirsty news is war with some country in the Middle East. And what are we doing now? War with some country in the Middle East. And unauthorized, of course, not in any way, form, or faction instigated by any other country except for Israel and the United States. So we have a traitorous administration, which is being led by the nose by a foreign power. The actual definition of treason being acting on behalf of another foreign power to undermine the Constitution of the United States, which I think kind of speaks for itself. And then, of course, the just blatantly violating war powers, which clearly sit within the hands of Congress in our Constitution. So, there is a lot to talk about, unfortunately. A lot of it actually happens to be foreign policy related, but since we're the ones instigating it, it's kind of this gray area. So, with that being said, enough introduction. Hello, Anna. We will get right into it, I guess. So, that's right. Even ICE is no longer dominating the news, despite that nonsense still ongoing. There is still very much so ICE arrests happening all over the country, targeting of brown people. Now, of course, we are targeting Iranians again. And I say again because during 9/11, we were targeting Muslim people regardless of their nationality. But because ICE is the modern-day Gestapo, we are now able to specifically target Iranians rather than just Muslims in general. Yay for progress. So, more protests, which is great, but also more activity, which is not great. ICE was denied Dodger Stadium, which honestly, I thought that was several weeks ago, but that's how fucked up things are. ICE continues to act with more and more brazen sociopathy that there are so many events happening all at once in a single week that it feels like it's been a month or two. Because normally these kinds of national news things only happen once a month, once every 6 months. Like, federal agencies are usually not in the news for being criminals, right? So the fact that this is happening over and over and over again just doesn't register that this actually happened all last week. Right. And I think part of that, so I'm not alone in that. Awesome. I think part of that, though, has to be the whole volume of it, right? The human psyche is only meant to be able to take so much tragedy and trauma at once before it starts partitioning and setting it aside so it can deal with it. But like we're literally being overwhelmed with corruption and tyranny by this administration. And overwhelmed, not as in like we're all like, huddled in a corner and rocking back and forth, but overwhelmed with like we are literally unable to process it all. Literally. It is figurative. It is factually impossible for the human brain to process all of these horrible things all at once and stratify. Like, yep, this horrible thing happened on Tuesday. 5 hours later, this horrible thing happened, and then 2 hours later, this horrible thing happened. Right? Like there is that we don't process like that. We just don't. I mean, look, take work for example. How many of you do 8 hours of solid work? That's what I thought. It's because we can't process all of that at once. It's too much focus for too long. And maybe there are some few of you that are quite capable of doing full 8 hours worth of work every day. But then you get that whole thing called burnout after a few months and you start losing your mind and you go crazy, right? Well, that's again, the body saying like, no, we can't do that. So my point is all of the bad things happening is like everywhere. What's the title of that movie? Everywhere, anytime, all at once or something. Everything, everywhere, all at once. That's what it was. That's what we are contending with right now. Now, of course, we would be remiss to not mention the fact that Democrats were the ones who created ICE and who have been beefing it up ever since. Of course, part of the overwhelmingness could be that we're just becoming dumber. The brain rot is setting in. And then, of course, that it's backfiring. So let's get into this. Like review time, but let's get into this. Let's do some protest. 2 days ago.
I want to buy your house. I can pay you
cash.
Oh,
goodness. Yeah, let's have more slumlords. That's what we need. That's what we really need.
Against ICE presence in Pasadena after organizers say 4 people have been detained by agents. Fox 11's Laura Diaz joins us live now from Pasadena with the very latest on the situation.
Hopefully we get some good news from New York City by the end of the stream. No, definitely. For those not aware, New York City is having a mayoral race, a primary, and, it is having a race, and at this point, it is the primary stage. Jeez. It's like I've never done this before. And yes, Zoran is the ideal candidate for what we have. Zoran has espoused very progressive left-leaning ideals to include rent reform, like not making it whatever the hell it is over in New York City. And of course, holding people accountable and using taxpayer dollars to, support the people. And of course, Andrew Cuomo, who is literally Trump light. Actually, I wouldn't even go so far as to say that he's Trump light. He is Trump. I mean, has the sexual offenses, has the corruption, has the abuse of power while he was governor. Is strong arming people left, right, and center, is being bribed left, right, and center, Zionist, the whole kit and caboodle. So, I mean, Andrew Cuomo is functionally Trump. Functionally, maybe just a little bit better spoken. Oh boy. And of course, that's who the Democrats are pushing, Andrew Cuomo. So anyway, fingers crossed with ranked choice voting finally not being a problem. True, in New York City, if you won the Dem primary, you basically won the mayorship. I mean, I hope there isn't an upset where we have a MAGA Trumper leading New York City. That would be insane. But I mean, MAGA being what it is, stranger things have happened.
Going on right there, Laura.
Yes, Sandra, no official head count as to how many people participated in today's demonstration. It looked to me like there were a couple hundred. It was a peaceful demonstration, people of all races, and what we witnessed was actually a lot of chanting and walking and even some dancing. The mood was upbeat, but their message was serious.
I've been to 5 this week. I think the message is being heard loud and clear.
Is it though?
Heard the music.
Here's the thing. here's the thing. I am not sorry, fidget toy. My bad. I am not dismissing the fact that these protests are activating people and that they are necessary. Not dismissing that fact. Not dismissing at all that we need to protest and we need to activate people immediately in major numbers. But to say that they are effective, I would not say that in the slightest, because if they were effective, if they were being effective to the point where we could claim now that we don't have to protest anymore, these raids would be stopping. But they're not. And what's happening is, right, there is a clear demand, and that is an improvement. I will absolutely say that. And again, I can criticize protests and movements like this because I have been part of them. I have led the chants. I have led the marches. I have spoke at several of these things. I went to Standing Rock. I protested the DNC thing and several other stuff besides. I know in previous streams I say, like, I'm not going to go to these anymore. So who am I to discuss about them? The thing is, I've become a little bit too about it, about that life, since those previous other protests. And that would be detrimental to the peacefulness of it. So the point that I'm trying to make here is, these peaceful protests are functionally prohibiting this activity at this specific location at that moment in time, but it is not preventing ICE from carrying out its activities literally anywhere else where these protests are not imminently occurring and surrounding the vehicles. So we definitely need these protests to become successful, 100%. But we can't claim they are successful until cities and states push ICE out, which has started to happen in several places across the country.
Almost before you saw the crowd marching its way down Pasadena streets this Saturday. 6 months ago, Pasadena attacked by fire. Now they say the threat is ICE, as in ICE raids on immigrant communities.
Man, they love their puns and metaphors.
They're in their homes, afraid to come out, afraid to go grocery shopping, afraid to pick up their kids from school. So why not be here and support them?
Joy is a part of our people's, even when we protest. We've got a joy that no one knows where it comes from, but it comes from the resilience of our people who built this country, brown and black people, and it's time for us to stand together.
It sure as hell is time.
The first crowd was organized by the National Day Laborer Organizing Network. And according to Pasadena police, who lined the route, it was peaceful.
Nah, that is pure fucking propaganda. Pure fucking propaganda. And I don't know what you're referencing on where have you heard that story? I did not see your comment in context.
The group says 4 community members were taken by federal agents this Saturday when they went out to buy tamales. This man, who does not have papers, took the opportunity to sell hot food. He's been hiding out at home. His protection Saturday was the crowd.
I was born in Mexico, but I was raised out here, so out of fear, I don't come out. So I'm trying to take advantage to make a little money to support my family.
The march ended up here at Garfield and Orange Grove. At times it felt like a protest. Other times it felt more like a block party, but they all spoke with one message.
There's enough pain here that we need to heal, and this is not healing. This but we'll fight. We'll fight.
Well, here's the thing. Our own viewers are dealing with this. There are people on all of our social media who are brown, who are just that, brown, who are being targeted for simply being brown. Now we're bringing back the Muslim fear because of Iran, right? Not Iran being the enemy, but we attacking Iran now justifies xenophobia all over again, apparently. So there's that. And if Traore starts, mucking up African unity, or creating African unity and mucking it up for the West, all of a sudden we're going to start targeting black people too, outright, indiscriminately. So once again, all we're doing is finding excuses to target people of color, which again, combined, I am fairly certain though, demographics of the USA. Wow, really? You're going to fucking go by Britons and shit like that? No. Where's the 2020 census? Criminy. I'm trying to go through Wikipedia here, and it's like not giving me the information that I was trying to look for here. So I see a whole lot of political shit. Religion, race, and ethnicity. Jesus. There it is. Finally. Okay. So it does seem as though... let's see. 191... Okay, so it's still 57% white. Okay, so we're still 57% white from people who responded. And allegedly, it was a 100% response rate, but who can really say that, right? The next biggest demographic in America, Hispanic or Latino, at 62 million. So I always thought black people were 20% of the population, and then it was Hispanics. But as it turns out, it's black people who make up 12% after the Hispanic or Latino demographic, which means 30% of the population is currently being targeted in some degree or another. Black people are being targeted by law enforcement, and brown people, Hispanic specifically, Latino types, are being targeted by the federal government. And they make up, the Latinos themselves make up 18.73% of the population. So we are targeting 62 million people because of allegedly 14 million illegal immigrants and terrorizing all of them, the 62 plus the 14, which would be what, 76? Which puts us well over 20% of the human population in the United States of America. So, excuse me? 1/5 of the country is a threat? And this is what's going on. 1/5 of the country is living in fear because approximately 5% of the country might be illegal. Might, keyword, right? Because alleged numbers of Latino illegal immigrants. Come on, Google. Don't let me down now. Yeah, around 11 million. So that would be around 4%, I think. Well, no, it's 3% because we know we need 11.5 million to be the 3% to be constantly organizing and constantly protesting to get a regime change in America. So it is 3%. So 3% of the population that's within America illegally is causing literally 20% of the population to live in fear. To live in fear. And I get that this is a Latina, and then there were a couple other folks that were Latino and all this other stuff. But they are targeting citizens too. You fit the description. Your registration was expired. You mean the registration that's a fucking sticker on my license plate that is very clearly not any other month other than one in the future? Are you serious right now? Like, do you really expect me to believe that? I swear to you, if I got a little bit more tan, and it's ridiculous outside, so I probably would start getting pulled over. Because I give off something that's just not quite 100% white. And it's just infuriating that that's the world that we are living in, that fully 62 million human beings, which is roughly the population of Iran anyway. I think Iran has 80 million people. Or was it 90? Iranian population, 90 million, right? So okay, 2/3 the population of Iran is currently being terrorized in our own country because of racism, blatant, unmitigated racism. So yeah, like all of this. Well, they're illegal. I could not give a single solitary fuck less, and that's speaking as president. I could not give a fuck less, because if 11 million illegals means that 62 million people can live safely and freely in this country without fear of retaliation, then so be it. And again, it's not as though we can't address this issue, right? Okay, so they don't have papers. That is a misdemeanor, like getting a minor misdemeanor, like getting a traffic ticket, like a parking ticket, right? Okay, so why is it $30,000 or $2,000 or some thousands of dollars to get citizenship or some sort of legal status? You're already working, you're already living here, you're already sending your kids to school here, you're already paying property taxes in some form or fashion, be that through rent or through housing or through some other thing. So why the hell would we pluck you from that, devastate the community, terrorize the community, devastate the economy, which I hate that it always has to come down to money, but why would we disrupt all that stuff? Why would we disrupt all of that just because they don't have a piece of paper? Guess what? Your great-grandfather who came in through New York City or from Florida or California, none of them motherfuckers had papers. They didn't have a visa because that shit didn't exist back then. So clearly immigrants aren't the problem. It's racism and xenophobia. So anyway, speaking of racism and xenophobia,
this is the quickest way to clear out stuck poop.
That's just her trying to, get her little tummy taken care of. That's fine.
In the United States, we have learned that since Sunday, immigration agents have arrested 11 Iranian foreign nationals, and that includes one man listed on the U.S. known or suspected terrorist list. ICE says those arrested were not in the U.S. legally. CBS News Homeland Security correspondent Nicole Skanga.
So we attack Iran after Israel attacked Iran. After we said, hey, let's have a peace agreement and talks about it, we're just going to go ahead and bomb you first and then say, okay, now let's talk peace. Crazy how we are immediately finding Iranian terrorists now. Amazing how we're finding Iranian undocumented migrants, Iranian specific, who might or might not be on the terrorist watch list or on the suspected watch list. Crazy how successful we are in doing this, which tells me one of two things. A, we know about these folks being in America regardless, and we're just picking and choosing when, where, and how to exploit that fact. Or these are innocent people being smeared again, just like Garcia, because he had tattoos on his knuckles, clearly a gang member.
Broke the story, and she joins us now live. Nicole, thank you for making time for us on 24/7 today. What can you tell us about those who were arrested?
Yeah, hi Mugo, good to be with you. This was a series of targeted operations that were carried out in 9 cities and across 8 states nationwide. And among those arrested, you mentioned at least one man who was a known or suspected terrorist on that watch list, and an alleged...
See, even CBS, like, they're using the words, like, this is manufactured consent. Like, I get that the news is propaganda, and I mean, if you're watching this channel, this stream, if you're watching me, chances are you're either politically aligned or you're going to try and troll me in a bit, okay? There is no question or doubt that the media, the national media especially, lies about a lot and manufactures consent about everything else. And the fact that she went out of her way to emphasize, and one suspected terrorist, and emphasized it so egregiously. I mean, like, people talk about false flags all the time. We actually bombed their nuclear site. We actually struck first. Now we're finding terrorists out of the woodwork over a multi-state, multi-city campaign that revealed at least one suspected terrorist? Come on.
Former member of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps with admitted connections to Hezbollah. Now, the Department of Homeland Security says Yusuf Mehrdano had been living in the U.S. illegally for nearly 8 years when...
8 years, and he hasn't decided, oh, okay. But of course, in those 8 years, he has 5 possessed criminal convictions, grand larceny, drug, and firearm possessions. So why the hell didn't you deport him then? If he went through all of this, if this man, this terrorist, did all that, and you guys just send him to jail for a few months and let him back out, send him to jail and then back out, then that's a you problem. But clearly, he's just a petty criminal, not a terrorist, because none of that is bombing, terrorizing, murdering, denying people their rights, attacking infrastructure, attacking politicians, which all of these things have happened in the past week or 2 weeks, and they have been by white men who voted for Trump. It was a MAGA supporter who murdered and attempted to murder 2, was it Minnesota representatives? We had a white man try and shoot up a church. Most active shooters, 99.3% of all of the active shooters have been white men who shot up churches, who shot up schools, who shot up nightclubs, airports, the whole 9 fucking yards. But clearly this man's a terrorist because he has a petty criminal record. Wow.
And U.S. officials determined that he lied on a visa application. And on Sunday, just roughly 4 months after the Iranian foreign national was added to the U.S. known or suspected terrorist list, he was arrested in central Mississippi, just outside of Jackson. ICE officials say another, Mehran Makari Saheli, was encountered by federal agents at his residence near St. Paul, Minnesota. And ICE officials say Saheli is a former member of the IRCG, that elite branch of Iran's armed forces. They add that the detainee has admitted connections to Hezbollah, which of course is a U.S. designated foreign terrorist organization backed by Iran. He's now in ICE custody pending removal proceedings, and he's not alone. I mean, among those arrested, 5 also possessed previous criminal convictions, their crimes ranging from grand larceny to drug.
Okay, so one man didn't have all those charges, which again proves the point. It's misleading journalism. Wow. He lied on his visa application and apparently did none of those things.
Firearm possessions also apprehended. This one was interesting. Ribbar Karimi, while arresting him in northern Alabama, ICE officials say they actually found his Islamic Republic of Iran Army identification card on his person.
Wow. You found an Iranian soldier planted in Alabama? What? How incredibly fortuitous that you found the premier, perfect, just mitigated evidence of an Iranian soldier, of an honest to God card carrying member of the Iranian military, just living in blood red, white, and blue Alabama. My country with the eagle should be so proud to have discovered and detained such a monstrous affront to our sovereignty that a foreign national military member with their ID, passport, and history just perfectly, it's almost as if it was freshly printed, almost as if it was freshly laminated, as if it was immediately pressed by the Iranian supreme leader himself and blessed it. Assalamu alaikum. Inshallah. I'm not very good with the Arabic customs here. I'm just, wow. Inshallah. I know that means something.
And alleged that he served as an Iranian sniper between 20.
I'm sorry. I guess I should have let her finish. I'm sorry. We found the equivalent of Iranian Chris Kyle embedded in Alabama illegally with all of the, okay, I like I said, I'm not familiar with Arabic customs, which is ironic since I served in the military during the height of the global war on terror. But this, we're gonna have to read this from the beginning, hear it from the beginning, because I interrupted apparently the wrong spot, because it just gets like, if ever there was a false flag arrest, like of just blatantly trying to manipulate public opinion, Here it is. It's coming.
It's interesting. Ribbar Karimi, while arresting him in northern Alabama, ICE officials say they actually found his Islamic Republic of Iran Army identification card on his person and alleged that he served as an Iranian sniper between 2018 and 2021.
Wow. Nicole,
Wow. Iranian Chris Kyle, who carries his military ID so he can get his military discount at Starbucks, was a sniper from 2018 to 2021 during the drawdown of the global war on terror, and just so happens to be hanging out in northern Alabama. And now, to his credit, I'm fairly certain an Alabama restaurant or Starbucks or whatever that offered a military discount, because it's Alabama, probably wouldn't know the difference between a U.S. military ID and an Iranian military ID. To be fair, it says military on it probably somewhere, and he was a sniper, right? So it probably just said, Inshallah, Arabic letters, and then army, right? And they're like, oh, okay, cool. Where did you get this? I was like, yes. When I served country in the Middle East, I was sniper, warfighter for my country. I fought many, many bad men, took many, many, many lives. I am here now for my mocha frappuccino with double shot espresso and vanilla shots, please. Oh, my hero. I tell you what there, Arab, because you look a little Arab, but you know what? With that there beard and your nice strong accent and jawline, I'm pretty sure you were a hero amongst them boys over there. I tell you what, that's right. Fighting in that there desert against them. You know what I'm talking about? Them sand with them there towel. You know what I mean? I think you know what, sir? You're a real one. You were a sniper over there in that there sandbox. This is on us. I'm pretty certain racist northern Alabama. Oh yeah. You just say, yes, I was in the military, inshallah. God bless America. That's a little weird speak, but you know what? You're a veteran. I get it. Fucked with your head a little bit. You were around those sand ninjas for a bit too long. I get that. You acquired some of their speak. I got it, son. Here you go. American-made coffee, which, again, coffee cannot be made in America because it cannot physically be grown in America. But neither here nor there. Insane to me that we found the Iranian Chris Kyle, sent probably by the Ayatollah himself, we're going to find out, I'm sure, in northern Alabama. Are you fucking kidding me? And we're supposed to believe that. Yeah, but Puerto Rico is a territory, not a state. It's not mainland America either. So I did not misspeak, ma'am. Colony 1. This is Colony 1. We are seeing an uptick of violence. Can the mainland please send some help over? This is mainland. Colony 1, you're a bunch of brown people, and we don't want you in our country, so get fucked. Oh, by the way, because that's also happening in Puerto Rico, Dominicans are being terrorized in Puerto Rico, and of course, I'm sure Puerto Ricans are being targeted as well, because according to ICE, being brown is the crime. Hey, I need you to speak some English. ¿Qué? ¿Cómo estás? We're in Puerto Rico. I heard you say we're. All right. Close, motherfucker, close. And then some guy over there just ordering empanadas is just getting tackled by 15 racist white dudes. Anyway, that was a bit much.
You also reported that a U.S. citizen was arrested in Arizona along with one of the Iranian foreign nationals. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, also arrested by federal...
No, we're not referring to Puerto Rico as Colony 1. Are you shitting me? That'll get me canceled, for one. For two, I wanted to grant them statehood, so absolutely not.
Agents actually in the Phoenix...
Unless it's funny, haha. And like everybody understands it's meant to be funny, haha. Would Guam be Colony 2?
Suburbs in Tempe was U.S. citizen Lynette Vartanian. She was taken into custody on federal charges of threatening a law enforcement officer and what's called harboring an illegal alien. It's a federal...
Okay, so Lynette Vartanian is being charged for threatening a federal agent and harboring an illegal alien. I would be threatening a federal agent too if you came kicking down my door spouting some nonsense when I'm a fucking American. She's an American. They just said she's an American. It's your right to protest. You have the right to free speech. And yes, if a cop came and kicked down my fucking door and said, show me the illegals, I'd be like, get fucked. And probably some other choice words. And so what, now I'm going to get arrested for threatening a federal agent because I told him to go fuck himself? Wow. I mean, if that's not authoritarian, it is. Let's be very clear. That is authoritarian. It's a violation of rights. You're literally profiling people, and it's insane. You're targeting Americans. What are we going to do? Deport her to her home country, which is fucking America? Oh, that's right, because now we can deport people to other countries, otherwise known as human trafficking, because you can only deport people back to their home, their country of origin. That's the definition of deportation. That's to deport, take from here and to send back home. That is the only definition of deporting. If you deport someone, if you remove somebody from this country and send them literally anywhere else in the world, that is human trafficking, which is a crime against humanity and a war crime.
Offense. ICE officials say the woman threatened to open fire on ICE officials,
which is her goddamn right under the Second Amendment, and especially if those federal officials didn't show a fucking warrant. Where's that part of the story?
If they entered her home, they were entering due to another man who she was harboring there, and she threatened agents. She said she would go outside and shoot officers in the head, and subsequently they arrested.
Now, to be fair, defend your castle laws are different in every state. So maybe she didn't have the right to defend her castle. But guess what? The Second Amendment doesn't give a shit about the castle. It says, because again, I love to be correct on things, Second Amendment language. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, is Miss Vartanian a part of the militia? No, probably not. I'm not going to argue that. But guess what? In America, we've been arguing for 250 plus years that's not what that meant. That meant anybody could become a militiaman. Therefore, everybody has the right to a gun. And of course, in the South and in the West, that they basically give them to you as a takeout little goodie bag whenever you go get freaking McDonald's or Starbucks. So the second part being necessary to the security of a free state. Well, guess what? Terrorizing people without a warrant, ignoring due process, and trying to enter the home to try and get some other person that isn't you is not how a free state operates. So this lady needs a shit hot, just lawyer, a lawyer with an axe to grind, a lawyer with something to prove, a lawyer who wants to go to war in the courtroom, who's young, who's hungry, who is literally starving for that one case that'll put them on the map, who just graduated, who wants to just really, really get out there, someone ludicrously ambitious, defend this woman and argue she exercised her Second Amendment rights, irrespective of whatever the state laws require. Because this woman is a hero doing exactly what she should be doing. Her only failure, her only shortcoming in exercising her rights is the fact that her last name isn't like Tchaikovsky or Markowitz or Jones or Smith, right? And the fact that she isn't Lily Pasty White. If she was a white blonde lady with the last name of Jones or Smith, can't imagine she would have been arrested for that. Can't imagine she would have been. So we need some hardcore, it wasn't Pretty in Pink. It was the other one. The girl who said, "Oh, I got into Harvard like it's hard." Legally Blonde. We need some like Legally Blonde level lawyer to back her up. Yeah, I figured it out right when you typed it.
Arrested the two of them. You can see them on screen now.
Yeah. And all of this comes as the Department of Homeland Security is alerting the public of a heightened threat environment here in the U.S. Are these arrests related to that warning?
Yeah, this is an important question because the Department of Homeland Security
and we want to make sure our
activated
propaganda
its National Terrorism
aligns.
Advisory System really just hours after the U.S. attacks on Iranian nuclear facilities. This was Sunday that advisory went out. And intelligence officials cautioned that America remains on high alert for physical or cyber retaliation against the homeland. Intelligence officials I've been speaking with say one big concern is homegrown extremism, the potential for attacks
Homegrown extremism? You mean the fucking Proud Boys and the neo-Nazis and the white men who have been murdering people and shooting up places with impunity? Or I don't know, the fact that we have federal agents with masks walking up to people in plain clothes and kidnapping them off the streets? What the fuck are you even talking about right now? How the ever-loving fuck? What kind of gymnastics, mental gymnastics, propaganda gymnastics are you engaging in? Simone Biles would have difficulty keeping up with you. And she is literally the best gymnast the world has ever seen. And we haven't even seen her do the things that she is actually capable of doing. Are you fucking kidding me? I have a hard time believing Israel's leaders claim that Iran broke the ceasefire. Israel already has a history of breaking. No, it's not even a question that they broke it. Israel attacked, America attacked, Israel and America said, okay, let's negotiate, and then attacked Iran. Like this is a no-brainer. IRS agents targeting us for our views, but we'll take you down for being from that country. No, exactly. But they want to talk about homegrown extremism as if me and you guys watching this are the homegrown extremists. Like, no, motherfucker. People have already masqueraded as plainclothes cops and ICE agents and raped, harassed, assaulted, robbed, beat, attacked, kidnapped, and worse. Because there's precedent. These agents are getting away with God knows what. These officers are getting away with God knows what because they refuse to identify themselves. They refuse to show a warrant. They refuse to respect people's due process, which is encouraging everybody else. Well, not everybody else, but encouraging some people with darkness in their hearts to act accordingly. That's the extremism. The people with that on their back, wearing those vests with a mask. Unfucking believable, CBS. I thought you were, well, no, I didn't. And there was a point in time where CBS wasn't this bad, but this is like Fox News levels of propaganda shit. Holy crap. Wow. Let's do some good news.
I gave it a shot and I came in and had the procedure done.
Oh, goody. 15 seconds of unskippable ad. I hope one of those ICE agents gets redacted for breaking into someone's home. It's going to happen. And when that happens, it's going to be even worse because they're already acting with impunity. So now, oh, well, I feared for my life. So now they're not even going to knock on the door. They're just going to kick down guns blazing, which is only going to cause more death, more terrorism, and more fear.
Starting with some breaking news here. There are more protests now against ICE raids here in LA, and this time it's happening outside Dodger Stadium. There's a group of protesters seen gathering near one of the entrance gates after the Dodgers confirmed that ICE requested permission to access the parking lots. And so that's what we're talking about there. It seems like the helicopter shot sort of gave you a look inside the stadium, but this is where the protests initially had gathered here. The organization, the Dodgers organization, is saying that...
Look at this. That guy has police. That guy has some symbol on his shirt, and this guy has some symbol on his shirt. But this motherfucker right there with his big old glasses, that is literally some guy who just got a pump from the gym, put on his gun in his vest, and showed up to work. Like, no, this is unacceptable. No, that is good news, but that would be tomorrow's news for Foreign Affairs.
Agents were denied entry to the parking lot. A group of federal agents seen wearing tactical gear, their faces covered. They were gathering nearby as well.
Oh, I'm sorry. That has nothing to do with law enforcement. So you got two gym bros who just showed up with guns and were like, hey, bro, is this the place where we can terrorize Americans and brown people. Yeah, bro. All right, bro. Let's go, bro.
Jacqueline Lee is tracking the latest here from our LA bureau. So first of all, Jacqueline, it sounds like these protests, again, happening against ICE agents that after at least their vehicles, and some of them were spotted near the stadium.
Right. So we know that there were dozens of ICE agents that were gathered around Dodger Stadium.
Dozens.
They were staging there because what we have seen throughout the day here is they started at Dodger Stadium, and then those ICE agents fanned out around the city and engaged in those raids at car washes, Home Depot parking lots, and taking immigrants into custody. And so what we've seen happen as a result.
No. Alleged immigrants. Alleged. Because without due process and without warrants, there is nothing to say that what they did was lawful or justified. I hope I'm not breaking eardrums, but this is infuriating. Lady, Miss Ma'am, you are doing the work of the tyrant by using their language and justifying their actions by saying, oh, well, they were going after migrants. You don't know that. They were going after brown people at car washes, at Home Depot parking lots, in communities. Brown people who speak Spanish, who may or may not be migrants. That is who they are going after, because they are not using warrants. They are not declaring themselves. They are terrorizing our communities. So let's be very fucking clear about that.
Is the community, Kana, has been responding, and when they hear that there's ICE raids being conducted in different areas of Los Angeles, those community organizers are then deploying themselves to those areas to try to help anyone on the scene and try to keep those ICE agents accountable. So what you saw there is those dozens of ICE agents outside Dodger Stadium. They had requested to stage in that parking lot. The organization said no, so they staged outside of it. And as a result, you saw dozens of protesters there arrive to show those ICE agents that they did not, those community organizers.
On the plus side, I have those jeans. I have those boots. I have that shirt. I have a vest, but it's black instead of green. And I can get a hat and a gator any day of the week. So the good news is I could infiltrate these morons and try and sabotage them at any given time. I haven't yet, because we're doing this. We are trying to do this part first. Politics and organizing. But the sick part of it is everything that guy is wearing is easily accessible in the United States. You can damn near order all of that on Amazon, minus the gun. Minus the gun, you can get every single part of this on Amazon. Which is, again, the problem, because people are doing that, getting that shit from Amazon, and terrorizing brown people, and largely getting away with it.
Did not want.
I allegedly have a gun. We don't need the feds to know what I may or may not have.
Them here in Los Angeles, Kano.
Well, it sounds like DHS right now.
But I could always get one, because it's there's, I mean, it is incredibly easy to get weapons in Ohio. Like, the background check is a joke, and you get your gun then and there. Like, again, it is not difficult to get every part of the kit required to be an ICE agent, and that's the problem. People are doing that. That's why the Proud Boys look the way they do, dress the way they do, because they can engage themselves, they can insert themselves with law enforcement, especially plain clothes law enforcement at a moment's notice. And guess what the cops do? Encourage it. Here's more good news. Zoran, Brad, and Jumaine is number 1, 2, and 1, respectively, and set to hell with the rest. I'm not ranking anybody else. Nobody else is deserving of a rank. Yeah, that's the thing. With ranked choice voting, you don't even have to put Cuomo in the running. Like, you can just not rank him. So, fun fact.
Jacqueline is saying that this had nothing to do with the Dodgers, that these vehicles were in the stadium parking lot very briefly, again, unrelated to any operation or enforcement. That's the word there from DHS. But the Dodgers also saying that they had requested access to the parking lot.
Correct. So the Dodgers
we will
said,
be online
no,
when
you're
that
not allowed
happens.
to, because remember, this is a private business location, and we can only, what the community is seeing is they're seeing those ICE raids being conducted as we speak throughout Los Angeles. But the other thing is also...
Okay, so she just said, oh, it's on private property or a private business. is a laundromat and a car wash and Lowe's and Home Depot, not private businesses. So why are they conducting raids in public or in privately owned business spaces? Oh, wait, because those publicly owned, privately owned spaces are encouraging and allowing it. Or are they requesting with Home Depot in the first place? See, this is the part that kills me. If private property is such a means of creating sovereign space for that private entity, then the mere presence of law enforcement and these agents on those private properties that designate themselves as sovereign property to disallow even law enforcement to get on means that they are being compliant, ergo complicit, to these Nazi Gestapo raids.
The Dodgers organization has come under fire from the community for not speaking out about what has been going on with these ICE raids. We know there were several community organizers saying that the LA Dodgers is one of the largest economic engines here in the city, and yet had not made a statement about what was going on with this.
Is that a fucking bass pro shop? Fucking yay. Like, they're not even wearing this guy's the only one that has anything to do with police on him, from what we can see. And it's on his back.
The Dodgers were expected to announce a show of support and plans to assist those immigrant communities.
And look at all these class traitors. Mexican. Well, I'm sorry. That was derogatory. Hispanic. I think the next guy's white and the next guy's also Hispanic, and then a black cop. Oh no, a white cop. So we have a majority of minorities in uniform standing against the community who are saying, stop targeting minority groups in our community. And it's like, do these people really not see that they are the traitors? Like, they are the bad guys? Like, that they are the very problem? That they're the fucking boot? Do they not see this? I really don't get it. Yeah, I mean, ifs and buts, if I was in charge, ICE would be sent straight to The Hague, and every officer who helped them would be sent to The Hague, and every politician and every CEO and every manager who allowed ICE to conduct business on their premises would be sent to The Hague as well. Like, I mean, if we're talking about what we could do, honestly, I would XYZ. All of these motherfuckers would be in The Hague, to include the broadcasters and the journalists who are disingenuously reporting on it. Like, let's be very honest here. Democrats help. I mean, they did. I don't know if we need to necessarily watch a video on it. I think this is a good PSA. That ChatGPT is literally turning our brains into Swiss cheese. That's probably worth noting. And I bet this video was made with...
Hello, I'm David Gerard, and this is
that would have been funny if it was made by AI.
Coming to you
Let me
daily.
grab some snacks.
Today's big question: does ChatGPT make you stupid, or do stupid people just love ChatGPT? There's a new study that says that first one looks like it might be the case. ChatGPT users, quote, consistently underperformed at neural, linguistic, and behavioral levels, unquote. ChatGPT makes you stupid. The preprint's called Your Brain on ChatGPT, Accumulation of Cognitive Debt when Using an AI Assistant for Essay Writing Task. This is a preprint, but it's a full 200-page study, not just a blog post, so this will be on its way to a proper journal. A team in the MIT Media Lab measured 55 people over 4 months on how well they could write an essay. Either 1 with ChatGPT, 2 with just a search engine, or 3 with just their brain, unassisted. And while the tests are...
Okay, show of hands. Who's able to write a huge paper with just their brains? Show of hands.
Wrote the essays, the researchers hooked up their brains to an EEG to see which parts of their brains were active or not. The ChatGPT group had less brain activity and less interconnected brain activity than the other groups. Specifically, they didn't use the parts of their brains that...
Hold on. This guy is wearing a pro AI t-shirt while making a video that says ChatGPT makes you stupid.
Normally engage in language processing, working memory, or creative writing, anywhere near as much as the search engine group or the just their brains group. Also, after they'd produced an essay, 85% of the search engine and unassisted groups could remember a quote from their own essay. Only 20% of the chatbot group could. And when they were shown their own essay afterwards, 16% of the chatbot group couldn't even remember their own essay and denied it was theirs. 0 of the other 2 groups failed to remember their own writing. That shouldn't be surprising. If you're not doing the work, you're not doing the work, and you won't remember doing the work. But also, the researchers then switched the groups up. The search engine and just their brain groups did just as well when they switched to using the chatbot. But the group that started on the chatbot did not get any better when they switched the search engine or just your bare brain. They were still stuck thinking as badly as they did when they were trying to write using the chatbot. That strongly suggests it's imperative to keep students away from chatbots in the classroom. AI slop generators have no place there. Classrooms are literally the place that's supposed to train you to put skills into your brain. You'd think, obviously, you can't get a chatbot to learn skills for you. You'd think that. This also explains the many, many people who keep insisting to you and to me and everyone, use the chatbot instead of thinking, and they will not shut up about the chatbot. They tried thinking once and they didn't like it. So they don't want you thinking either. Just use the chatbot. Did you know competence is fake? And if you just...
Well, considering he's reading very obviously from a prompter, I mean, okay. That bears a more personal view here. So what we just watched and what that study was discussing, that dude does not have a very good delivery. Or maybe I hear my voice better than what it sounds like. Maybe I sound just like that guy, but to me, I don't. So I'm going to talk shit. What that study was discussing is the fact that when you rely on a tool too much to do literally the thing that you're trying to do, you lose the ability to do the thing. So if you're used to doing things just with your own brain, great. If you didn't know something, you're going to continue to not know something, but you're not going to lose your ability to do that thing that you were attempting to do. If you use a little bit of research help like I do, I like to do Google a lot, so that when I do quote something, I make certain that I use the correct words and the correct terms and the correct language, rather than being like, well, I know the Second Amendment has something to do with the militia, well-regulated, and tyranny, but I want to make sure I get it right because I don't want to mince the words, if you will. It makes sense. If you have the ability and the capacity to think, to articulate, and to problem solve on your own without using the tool, that's good. That should be the baseline. Like that should be here. This is being able to think for yourself is right here. But with the prevalence of AI and all of these influencers saying, stop thinking, stop doing, just put in the chat and do. And then the fact that it is infiltrating our jobs, it's infiltrating our schools, universities, I mean, every facet of our life, and succeeding in dumbing down the population should tell everybody what they need to know about what AI is. And this is the ultimate tool of control. Again, an uneducated population is an easy to control and manipulate population. The United States is losing its literacy quickly. Less than 70% of people now are literate, considered literate. And less than half of the country can even read at a 6th grade level. And it gets worse and worse and worse. So when you recognize that we are literally being dumbed down as a country, and then look at the way we were voting and looking at the way that we are being swayed by politicians, by media, by influencers, it all amounts to the same thing, control and manipulation. And we allowed this to happen to ourselves by not standing up against it because we became complacent. We became fat, happy, and comfortable in the way of life that we were given starting from, I don't know, the 70s or 80s. And it just went downhill from there because we got used to it. And it took a generation for it to get plucked away from us. But ever since around the 90s, early thousands, it has been accelerated. The dumbing down, defunding education, defunding colleges, propagandizing everything. And then with the influx of the internet, it just became that much easier to do. Just incredibly easier to do, because now all you have to do is find the things that match your preconceived notions, biases, and prejudices, and listen to nothing else, because you can choose not to. And that is the problem. That and that is the end goal of this administration, of every previous administration. Probably from the very founding of our country, it was to get to a point where we can control the masses to do whatever it is we, the people in power, deem necessary. And corporations could not be happier. Oh, we have a bunch of drones who can't question what we tell them to do? Even better. Yeah, sure, they might not be as competent at their jobs. Oh, yeah, sure, they might not be doing whatever, but I'm still ridiculously rich, and they're not, and they don't know how to do anything about it. That is the fundamental problem and concern with AI in society. And the fact that it is becoming normalized should concern everyone. I am proud to say that I've never used AI to write anything, only for my thirst traps. Jesus Christ. Yes, you cloned yourself and opened up a multiverse of Annas. Alex Jones claims he can think for himself and is against the attack on Iran. Yeah, well, it's kind of crazy to me, too, how many conservative influencers and pundits are actually vehemently against the war in Iran and actually pushing back against the administration for it, which is crazy to me, because I never thought in my life would I ever find myself agreeing with Tucker Carlson. And here we are. He took Ted Cruz to task, just dog walked him for the entire however long the interview was, and made him look like the fool that we all know Ted is, but it was Tucker who did it. And it makes me angry that he did such a good job. Conversely, it's also not working for our society, so that should be good at least.
Hello, I'm David Gerard, and this is Pivot to AI, coming to you daily. Today, let's kill all the humans, then change our minds.
It's not working well for the obvious reason. AIs are not smart. They're not capable of replacing human thought or intellect. And because of all these things, they're not doing the job that they're supposed to be designed to do. What's worse is when AI is being integrated into things like insurance, they're just arbitrarily blocking 90% of all claims and can't be held accountable, all because it was an AI oopsie daisy with no accountability whatsoever. Which, granted, implementing the AI and it doing what it is should be enough to hold the people who did the implementing accountable. But of course, this is America, and we can't hold rich people accountable. So that's the long and short summary of that video.
We have some serious news right now. New rules would allow VA doctors to avoid treating Democrats and unmarried veterans as a result of new Trump policy.
So I actually need to go to the VA here in the next couple of weeks, and I'm going to test that theory. I'm going to go to my doctor and be like, hey, I'm not a Democrat, but I'll say I am. I'll just say for the sake of argument that I am a Democrat and that I am unmarried. Are you still going to treat me? And I'm going to have it recorded. I'm going to have it recording on my phone. And just to see what happens with that, because I have a feeling it's not going to be universally adopted, but I do have a feeling that there are going to be some places in Texas, Alabama, Mississippi, the South, the conservative parts of California, probably even the conservative parts of New York, because that's where ICE is happening too. I bet all the places where ICE is acting out of pocket is where these VA hospitals are going to act out of pocket.
According to The Guardian, these new rules apply to a whole host of occupations, from doctors to psychologists to dentists. While all staff are still required to treat veterans regardless of race, color, religion, and sex, individual doctors can now refuse to treat patients based on personal characteristics not prohibited by federal law, and language requiring medical professionals to treat patients regardless of political status or marital status is expressly eliminated, which means under these new rules, veterans who are not married could potentially be refused treatment because they're not married. Veterans who are Democrats can be refused treatment because they're a Democrat. And that's not all. Doctors and medical staff could even be barred from working at the VA based on political status, based on marital status, according to The Guardian. And that includes nurse practitioners, chiropractors, optometrists, podiatrists, and licensed clinical social workers. This is real. This is happening. I'll have a full breakdown on my Substack linked in bio, so subscribe for free and follow along for more.
Well, we're not doing any of that, but I mean, I didn't realize it also impacted the hiring. So, I mean, explain to me like I'm 5, how this administration is functionally different than Hitler's Nazi Germany. Explain to me how MAGAism, MAGA Republic, whatever the fuck you want to call it, is any different than the Nazis. Like, I am honest to God asking right now, because we are now doing political persecution. We are doing where the party is dictating hiring practices and medical practices now. It's like, oh, you don't have to cover our political enemies. The fuck? Oh, you're not married? Sucks to suck. I guess you can just die. If you're not gonna procreate for the party, then you don't deserve to be treated well by the party. What? I don't even think the Empire in Star Wars acted that egregiously. Yeah, they went after the Jedi, but the Jedi wasn't a political party. They were Force users who were a genuine threat to the Empire. Okay, cool. I'll terrorists, whatever, fine. I'll give you that. But they didn't. Even the evil Empire, which is arguably based off of the United States, didn't make it to be able to persecute political rivals arbitrarily. So how are we different than the Nazis, who did engage in that? Let's be very clear. They did. So Nazi Germany targets political rivals. MAGA does the same thing. Nazi Germany went door to door getting undesirables, starting with the Jewish population. Well, MAGA did the same thing, but starting with the Latinos. Nazis tried to overthrow their government and failed the first time. MAGA did the same thing. Military invasions. Interestingly enough, the Nazis were actually successful in most of their invasions. MAGA is very unsuccessful in their invasions, but they're still trying it. Deporting people to foreign countries or trafficking them to foreign countries. Unregulated law enforcement and federal agencies. Just terrorizing communities. Obey the party or else. Loyalty requests in order to get work within the party. Attacking schools. Attacking universities. Subjugating them. Targeting them. Having your supporters murder political rivals from a different party or a different organization. Like, the list literally goes on. There is not a single thing that the Nazis have done that this country is not in the process of doing. Well, we're not gassing the Latinos in concentration camps. Really? So what do you call Tent City at our borders in Arizona? What do you call the genocide of Palestine with our military budget, our munitions? I would say it's actually worse, because we're just wholesale slaughtering people and lying about it, but also broadcasting it in broad daylight. So, no, we are not functionally any different than Nazi Germany at this point. We're just not. Oh yeah, you're right. Attacking LGBTQ, specifically transgender folks, but obviously queer people generally. Death camps in El Salvador, there's your Auschwitz. The cracking down of immigration and migration at our ports of entry. It just... of course, talking about the making the country great again, a country without the undesirables. Sure, they're not saying we only want white people, but they are saying we don't want DEI, which is damn near the same thing. DEI is the new Aryan race. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. He's lost the political battle? Clearly he hasn't, because Democrats and Republicans very much so still hold power and sway. Now, these ones, right? All of the claims of Iran. He says something, the news reports it, something else happens. He says something else, the news reports it, something else happens. So we can watch these kind of in real time, but like functionally, the conflict is still ongoing and Trump is powerless to interfere because he refuses to stop sending missiles and bombs to Israel to use against Gaza and Iran. But fundamentally, right?
Thank you very much. A short time ago, the U.S. military.
Nah, we're not listening to this. We're going to go ahead and skip.
In one, Donald Trump is at war. In another, he is angry at not having peace. So what happened? Well, 12 days ago, Israel launched a surprise all-out war against Iran, partly to derail nuclear peace talks with the United States. Iran responded, firing hundreds of drones and ballistic missiles at Israeli cities. Israel then called on the U.S. to join its fight to take out Iran's nuclear facilities. On Saturday, Trump did just that, sending in his powerful B-2 bombers and destroying 3 facilities. Then last night, Iran fired airstrikes at a U.S. military base in Qatar, one of its allies in the region. Just hours after that, Trump announced a ceasefire between Israel and Iran. If your head is hurting trying to keep up, you're not alone. So what exactly happened and what happens next? Earlier, I spoke to Fawaz Gergis, professor of international relations at the London School of Economics. He's the author of The Great Betrayal, The Struggle for Freedom and Democracy in the Middle East. Thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate your time.
It's my pleasure, and thank you for having me.
Now, help us make sense of the last 24 hours. We were just coming off U.S. airstrikes on 3 nuclear facilities in Iran. It felt like it was going to be an escalation. We saw a retaliatory strike from Iran on Qatar, of all countries, an ally of Iran in the region. That was followed shortly by an announcement that everything was coming to a halt, that the war was over, and there was a ceasefire. How does this make sense?
I think there is not much clarity at this particular point because the dust
even the experts are like, that doesn't make sense. We're not watching 40 minutes of this, but suffice to say, that's the rub. There was attacks going back and forth, ceasefire, not ceasefire, ceasefire, not ceasefire. It's absolutely insane. I don't actually know about this one. This is the first time hearing about the Fulbright board members.
A week ago, 11 of the 12 members of the board overseeing the prestigious Fulbright program, which promotes international educational exchanges, resigned, citing political interference by the Trump administration in their work. In a statement, the board members said they chose to resign rather than endorse unprecedented actions that we believe are impermissible under the law.
So I believe, Anna, you said this yourself during one of our streams. Why would you resign and guarantee that some lickspittle will take your position rather than literally be forced to be fired or pushed out of the position and fighting with your last breath to prevent these things from going through in the first place?
U.S. national interests and integrity and undermine the mission and mandates Congress established for the Fulbright program nearly 80 years ago. Joining us now is one of the former members of the Fulbright board, David Price, former Democratic congressman from North Carolina. Congressman, it's great to have you here.
Was he on the board during its inception?
And we should explain for the unfamiliar, the Fulbright is overseen, it's funded by the State Department as the government's flagship international educational exchange program. How would you describe the political interference that you experienced by the Trump administration?
Well, when the program was first set up almost 80 years ago, Senator Fulbright himself wanted to safeguard against political interference in the program, in the selection of scholars, interference with academic freedom on the part of any administration in the future. So the board was written into the statute with precisely that mission. It's an unusual mission for a board, but we were given final authority over the selection process. And we went through that as we always do. This year, we had the awards ready to go in the middle of March. But the Trump administration's political appointees told us that they intended to review our work and to make their own judgments. And that was ominous, but we watched that process. We tried to communicate with them. When we got wind that they were going to be canceling a number of the awards, we objected and cited our statutory responsibility and the values underlying it. And we got silence, no response whatsoever. So finally, when all this became clear in the middle of May, 2 months late, over 200 applications had been canceled by the Trump appointees, and another 1,200 or so were under review. At that point, it was clear that the Trump administration wasn't responsive to our questions, and they were ignoring their legislative mandate, and we didn't think there was more we could do. Indeed, we just could not remain in position and appear to legitimize the gross distortion for the first time in 80 years, the gross distortion of this program, the political interjection of politics into the selection process.
Again, the words that he is saying is correct. We don't want to be seen to be endorsing and being complicit with this. What you should have been doing instead of resigning is what you're currently doing. Hi, my name is J.F. Bennett. Oh, wait, no. J.F. Bennett is the other guy. What the fuck is this guy's name? David Price. What he should have done is be like, hey, my name is David Price. I am on the board, and the administration has pretty much violated our mandate and is violating their congressional thing. This clearly needs to stop, and the public needs to be aware of what's going on. Like, whistle blow. First of all, you're 90 years old. Take one for the team. If they assassinate you because you whistle blew, I mean, come on, dude. Going out with a bang. Like, come on. Why does nobody in power, with authority, with the actual means to do anything, why is literally none of those people doing the thing that they can do? You have authority. You have power. It is literally your position. You have all of the backing of 80 years of precedent and the mandate and. You have a leg to stand on. You're not me screaming into a microphone in the White House. You are a person with real authority in your department, in your agency, and you could tell this administration to fuck right off. And instead, your cowardice forces you to resign and then do these interviews after the fact. To the detriment of 1,400 applications, nominees, whatever the fuck that is. Unbelievable. I guess maybe I'm skipping a couple too many. I mean, the other problem is a lot of the shit that's happening in America right now for the past week, a lot of it isn't in the news. Like, a lot of it is literally not being recorded. And the fact of, so much bad shit happening notwithstanding, right? We could type in politics right now, U.S. politics, news, go to videos, and, what are we seeing? It's all about Iran right now. Political impact of the what? Of course, it doesn't even show us all of the damn titles, which also doesn't help. Also Iran. So there we go. So you type in U.S. politics in the news, and it's all friggin' Iran. And I'm not blaming you. I'm saying it's all Iran. It's all Iran because even what happened 2 days ago is no longer relevant compared to what's going on with Iran. It's just extremely disturbing. For instance, Diddy, the prosecutors rested their case. The federal prosecutors that were going after Diddy rested their case, meaning now it's going to deliberation and to the jury to determine whatever they're going to determine. or the defense, I guess, gets to do their part now. I don't know how that works in a federal trial, but that's not in the news. I only saw that when I went to the gym today. I did not see a single article on my social media. I'm not seeing anything as I am Googling it right now. Apparently, hold on. Oh, wait, no, that was 3 weeks ago. So, yeah, there is, it's extremely difficult to find anything. It was the Karen Reed trial. That was last week, right? Not this week, or in this past week. Because, I mean, that would be extremely newsworthy, but that has already been pushed out of the news cycle. So what is she doing now, for instance? Is she becoming an advocate? Is she just hiding and praying to God she never has to deal with men ever again in her life? I doubt she'll ever date a cop again. I can guarantee that. And if she does, she's an idiot. But hey. What about the Democrats continuing to push outspoken progressives and leftists out of the party and out of positions of authority and out of influence whatsoever? Where's those discussions? Like, and these are all just like, I don't even know what to say about these, but yeah, Kristi Noem on blast. Okay, cool. But that could easily be from weeks ago, right? They're all endorsing Cuomo, right? It's really disgusting how quickly our media is on board with this Iranian warmongering, consent manufacturing, and all of the other news that is still ongoing. Because again, that shooting that occurred in a church today or yesterday, which was stopped by a security guard at that church, has barely made a blip on the news, barely made a blip on literally anything. I'm not seeing anything on here. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. The Supreme Court allows Trump to swiftly deport certain immigrants to third countries. So I don't know if we covered that. No, we did not. Well, at least not in a video. But I think I covered that in my introduction today. Is that we are now legally, this administration is now given a green light by the Supreme Court to traffic people, certain people, to third-party countries. So it's okay to send some Jews to Auschwitz, but not all Jews to Auschwitz. That's literally what the Supreme Court is saying. And again, the comparisons to what Hitler did and what the Nazis did and what Trump is doing and what MAGA is doing is literally a Venn diagram in the form of a circle. Like, in the only difference is being like maybe the language. Like that's about the only difference. What else do we got? Yeah, I mean, it's still all Iran, and it's still like, how did we get here? How did we get to bombing Iran now? I don't know, maybe writing articles and thought pieces for the past 35 years that Iran was almost having nuclear weapons. Oh, actually, this is interesting. It's not a video, it's an article, but the headline reads, House torpedoes Representative Al Green's effort to impeach Trump over Iran strikes. So again, the party, der Führer, is untouchable because Republicans in Congress are being complicit with his actions because it makes him look strong if we go to war, even though they literally campaigned on not going to war. It's truly disturbing. So let's do some democracy now.
DemocracyNow.org. I'm Amy Goodman with
They were more fashionable.
To talk more about
you can't wear a leather trench coat anymore.
We're joined by
That's
John
for damn
Carlton,
certain.
editor-in-chief of The Independent, which is closely following New York City's mayor election. They had Zohran Mamdani on the cover of their January issue. John's recent piece is headlined Zohran Mamdani's Path to Victory. Earlier this month, Mamdani and Brad Lander, the other leading progressive candidate in the race, announced they would cross-endorse each other using ranked choice voting.
We both know what we need to do to save our city from Andrew Cuomo. You want to tell him?
You go first.
Nah, you go first.
Let's do it together. We're cross-endorsing.
In New York City, we have ranked choice voting. That means you can rank up to 5 candidates for mayor.
Brad and I are officially telling our supporters.
Rank
I'm your
me
number one.
Rank Zoran number 2. Let's send Andrew Cuomo
back to the suburbs.
Now, this may be extremely strange for people who don't
and it's extremely corny, but
have ranked choice voting to have 2 adversaries endorsing each other. For more, we're joined by John Tarleton to lay it all out. Again, the editor-in-chief of The Independent. You just heard, before we talk about ranked choice voting and the significance of these 2 co-endorsing each other, what that means.
Yep.
Zoran Mamdani, it sort of reminds you years ago of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who
you were absolutely right, pop culture.
Media hardly covered when she was running against Joe Crowley, longtime Democratic Congress member in the leadership of the House of Representatives. And she beat him. The Independent, your newspaper, had her on the cover before she even won. Do you see a replay here?
I do see a lot of similarities. You have a politician from an older generation like Andrew Cuomo that I think has really underestimated Zoran Mamdani in his campaign. Cuomo is comfortable with a very sort of stale, maybe outdated form of politicking. There's been almost no grassroots ground game from the Cuomo campaign. They thought they were going to win easily, so why go around knocking on?
Yeah, why go around knocking on doors? Because we're going to win so easily, said Hillary, said Kamala Harris, said Biden, said, I mean, take a pick. Pick any establishment Democrat in a deep blue area. We're going to win anyway, and then get their asses handed to them.
On doors, meanwhile, Mamdani's campaign has now knocked on more than 1.5 million doors and had countless conversations with ordinary voters. And also, Zoran Mamdani's platform is really, I think, speaking to a lot of people who feel like government doesn't do nearly enough to make their lives easier. And that was something that AOC was doing 7 years ago as well. I think one difference is AOC was running in one congressional district that tended to have very low voter turnout. She won that primary with 16,000 votes, and Crowley got about 12,000. In this race, we're going to have roughly 900,000 to 1 million votes cast. So Zoran, ultimately, after all the ranked choice voting sorts out, will need probably 450,000 or more votes to win, and he's certainly has a very decent chance of doing that. So he's...
Yeah, and you bring up very good points, Anna. None of these establishment hacks are using social media. None of these establishment hacks are actually knocking on the doors of the people they're trying to get to vote for them. Like, it's blatantly obvious, on just a surface level at least, that here's one candidate with the resources knocking on doors and another candidate with the resources not knocking on doors. This candidate is trying to listen to what you have to say. This candidate doesn't give a shit. This candidate is trying to at least reach you at where you might be, either at home or on your phone or on your computer. This candidate doesn't give a shit. This candidate thinks they have it in the bag. This candidate is fighting for their life, trying to earn your trust and your support. Like this is a no-brainer of who you choose.
This is the biggest left sort of electoral undertaking since the Bernie presidential campaigns.
And John, I just wanted to ask you briefly about the role of the real estate industry, the landlords of New York. They're investing heavily in Andrew Cuomo, and Michael Bloomberg has tossed in money, several $1 million for Cuomo. What's your sense of why the landlords are so upset about the possibility of a Mamdani victory?
Yeah, the New York Apartment Association recently made a $2.5 million contribution to Cuomo's super PAC, which has received more than $20 million total from billionaires and major corporations.
Jesus.
The reason the real estate industry is concerned about Zoran Mamdani, for starters, he's made freezing the rent a central part of his platform. Here in New York, we sort of have a patchwork of rent laws. I mean, going back to the have their origins in World War II, but continue to this day, that provide what's called rent stabilization for about 950,000 apartment units, which covers about 2.4 million New Yorkers. And under the laws here, the mayor appoints all nine members of something called the Rent Guidelines Board. And that Rent Guidelines Board each year decides how much landlords, the maximum they can increase the rent on their tenants. Under Eric Adams over the last 3 years, that Rent Guidelines Board has cumulatively increased the rent by about 9%. Under Adams' predecessor, Bill de Blasio, in 3 out of the 8 years de Blasio was mayor, he froze the rent. And Zoran Mamdani has said he will appoint a Rent Guidelines Board, all 9 members, he will be the one appointing, that will enact a permanent rent freeze for as long as he's mayor. So that's certainly one reason the real...
So they can't reduce the rent? Because if rent's $4,000, $2,000, whatever it is in New York, I know there's like the $18 million, presidential suites, and then there's like the closet with like a cot in it that if you're over 6 foot, you can't actually fit in there for like $800. I get all that. But like, why can't we just collectively reduce the cost of rent? If it can go up 3% every year, why can't it go down 3% every year? Like, why isn't that not the thing? Not criticizing, I'm just curious. Rent. No, you're absolutely right. That is absolutely right. And what did I talk about? Rent.
The estate industry is concerned about, Zoran.
In a moment, we're going to speak to Ro Khanna, the Congress member from Silicon Valley who refuses to take super PAC money. But if you can finally talk about that issue we started at the beginning, just for 30 seconds before we go to Congressmember Khanna, and that is the issue of ranked choice voting. Even for New Yorkers, it's almost new, one previous election. What it means that Brad Lander and Zoran Mamdani have co-endorsed each other.
Yeah, so if the polls are anywhere near accurate, the results that come in tonight, Cuomo may be slightly ahead.
525,600 minutes of me driving the point home. Let's do some math on that, because you might be right. A whole year. Is that where you came up with that number? Oh, it was a Broadway reference. I didn't realize. Oh, I get it. I remember this number now in a meme. You're gay if you know this number because of that specific Broadway reference. Okay, I get it. I get it now. I got the joke. Now.
In both candidates somewhere in the mid 30%, and the election will be decided when the ranked choice votes are tabulated next Tuesday, and Lander seems destined to finish in 3rd place, and he's strongly, cross-endorsed with Zoran Mamdani, and the polling projections that came out yesterday from Emerson, a leading independent pollster, which showed Zoran winning the election. He showed him winning it when at the final stage of ranked choice, when Brad Lander's votes would be reallocated. So that cross-endorsement could be decisive.
Thanks for watching.
Well, I mean, that is good news. I mean, the whole concept of ranked choicing is that there's, I don't want to describe it incorrectly because New York City might be doing it differently, but fundamentally, what you're supposed to do is get all of the votes that were cast in the ranks and give weight to them based on where they showed up. Now, oftentimes, it's just straight what it is. If in the ranked choice voting, your name came up in position 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, it counted as one towards you, right? So if everybody who voted had your name in it at least once and everybody else wasn't, you'd win. That's one way ranked choice voting is taken into consideration and how the votes are allocated. Another one, and I think this is the way New York City is, correct me if I'm wrong, is that your rank is weighted. So if you're rank 1 out of 5, you get 5 points. If you're rank 2 out of 5, 4 points, so on and so forth. which means by the first round, it's the buckets, and then the buckets and the buckets and the buckets. And then there's got to be, and then it gets consolidated and consolidated until there's an actual majority winner that meets a specific threshold. In order to become president, you have to get 60% of the electoral college votes, right? So if there were two candidates who got 40 and 40 and another one that got 20, well, you'd have to have a recount. You'd have to do some sort of something else. Either that person who got 20 got kicked and their votes would get split up and the people who voted for that person would have to vote again. I don't know. I don't think it's actually ever happened where it was a split in that way. But all of which is to say, like, that's ranked choice voting. That's the idea being, it gives you the opportunity to vote for somebody that you don't necessarily think will win, but somebody that you would want to win, but it would not be your safe vote to cast because there's too much riding on it, right? So that's the fundamental aspect there. So, let me figure out how to get back to this screen.
This is Democracy Now!,
okay,
democracynow.org. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. Today, New York City Democrats are voting in an historic mayoral primary. For much of the race, the 67-year-old former governor, Andrew Cuomo, was seen as the clear frontrunner. Cuomo resigned 4 years ago over allegations he sexually harassed at least 11 women while in office. But
11.
Polls show the race has become extremely tight. The possible new frontrunner, according to some polls, is a 33-year-old Democratic Socialist State Assembly member, Zohran Mamdani. He's risen to the top tier of a crowded field of 11 candidates in which voters will use a ranked choice voting system to choose 5 candidates in order of their preference. A coalition of progressive groups has called on voters to not rank Cuomo. Last October, Mamdani joined Democracy Now! As he launched his mayoral campaign and laid out the platform he's now known for. Today, he joins us on the phone from the campaign trail for a few minutes before we look broadly at this historic race. Zohran Mamdani, welcome back to Democracy Now! You held a news conference this morning in your home district of Astoria at sunrise?
Yes, I did, because that's the time that many New Yorkers are getting up to go to work, so they deserve a mayor who'll be ready just like they are.
And so talk about what your message...
So having driven through New York personally, I have never in my entire rural life seen so many people on the road at like 3 or 4 a.m. Like when people say New York is the city that never sleeps, like that is an absolute fact, because I will always try and get on the road earlier so I have to deal with less traffic, especially when I'm doing cross country. And Ohio to New York City is like a good 7-9 hour drive, especially New York City because of all that traffic, right? And I would leave at 3 or 4 a.m. sometimes, and it would be 5 lanes of traffic filled one way. And I'm like, are you friggin' kidding me? So yeah, early bird gets the worm in New York. Holy crap.
Just today, and how you think it is that you have eaten into something like a 40% lead that the disgraced former governor Andrew Cuomo had, and now some polls are putting you ahead.
Here's what I'm not understanding, though, and maybe it's because I don't understand New York politics, but in my experience, if you were the governor, your next step in political career should be like senator or president, right? Like that's the step. Governor, senator, president. Like that's where you go. You wouldn't go to Congress because, Congress, governor, Congress, Senator, though, senator or president. I have never heard of a governor running for mayorship of a city before. Now, granted, New York City is the largest city in America. Okay, fine. Like that's valid. But to me, that just still is like, wouldn't you be more inclined to run for president or for senator? I mean, I guess that's probably not up for grabs right now, but like that, I find that weird. That's where Mamdani lives. That makes sense. That seems to be the community is more important than the governor. Oh, okay. So governor is the what do you call it? The audition for New York City mayor. Okay, that makes a bit more sense.
Well, Amy, it's the same message that we've had since we launched this campaign on October 23rd, 8 months ago. And it was such a pleasure to do so at Democracy Now! And sharing our vision for a city that New Yorkers can actually afford. Affordability is the crisis of the five boroughs across our city, where we live in the wealthiest city in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, and yet 1 in 4 New Yorkers are living in poverty. 500,000 children are going to sleep hungry every night, and the rest are in a permanent state of anxiety as to whether they can continue to afford to pay their rent, to pay their childcare, to even afford the cost of groceries. And ultimately, what has powered our campaign's rise from 1% in the polls to being just a hair's breadth away from City Hall is this focus on an economic agenda that will deliver a New York City that working and middle-class New Yorkers can actually afford.
I mean, it's a great message.
How have you been able to build such a large campaign apparatus, despite the fact that most of the, quote, establishment of Democratic operatives, the unions and the political leaders have not backed you?
You're right. That is true.
You know, I think it's been incredible to see how the very New Yorkers who've been left behind by the politics of our city and of today have been the ones that are powering our campaign's rise. And I now speak to you with more than 50,000 volunteers. There was a point at the beginning of this race where there were some that doubted whether we would receive even 50,000 votes. And yet this campaign apparatus, of which I cannot think of a precedent in our city, is one that has now knocked on 1.5 million doors, made more than 500,000 phone calls, and ultimately is carrying a belief in politics that should require no translation, a politics that speaks directly to working and middle-class New Yorkers' struggles, and one that so often is being shared directly by one New Yorker to another at a doorstep or a subway platform or in a park, because too often we've allowed politics to become something where we wait for New Yorkers to come to us, or we lecture them instead of listen to them. And what we have done instead is reach out to New Yorkers wherever they are across these.
Fun fact, I literally said that's what we need to do when I ran for DNC chair in 2017. I literally said we need to be going back to rural America. We need to be earning the trust of our voters, not demanding it. And if we do not do these things, we will continue or cease to be relevant as a party. I'm glad that I was right. I mean, thank you, Zoran Mamdani. You probably have no idea who I am. You've probably never heard of me. You probably don't give a shit. I know we did technically meet, but I that's not the point. The point is, I'm glad that he is putting that concept to work into practice and proving that it can be done. Is it easy? Hell no. Knocking 1 something million doors, making 500,000 phone calls with 50,000 volunteers, that's an accomplishment. Okay? Because 50,000 volunteers would have to each knock 20 doors and then additionally make 10 phone calls. That's not nothing. And this is a primary, right? This didn't start 4 years ago. This was all in the past 6 months or so. That is a huge deal. Especially these are volunteers. And those numbers were just recently, right? He didn't start off with 50,000 volunteers who were able to split those 20 phone calls or those 10 phone calls and 20 knocks amongst the past 6 months. This was all at once, accumulating until today. So props. It is hard. It is difficult. He was already a state representative, I believe. So he had a little bit of name recognition, a little bit of credibility, if you will. And he was able to leverage that, which is something that most of us don't have, right? If Joe Schmo, if pop culture decided to run for mayor in his town, nobody knows who the fuck he is. So he's probably not going to have the same impact, even if he has the same message and the same spirit and the same drive. You see what I'm saying? Money or name recognition or both is what drives politics in America, which is why social media is so important to build, especially locally and especially at the state and national levels. And we're seeing the proof of that concept.
It's 5 boroughs.
And of course,
yeah, but does that really? I mean, what's the limit? Because if Cuomo raised $20 million, then the limit is kind of pointless. Because if it isn't $1 million, if the limit isn't $1,000 than even $10,000 or $100,000. Like if that's not the limit, and the limit's in the 7 figures range or 8 figures range, then it's kind of pointless.
Of course, this is the Democratic primary that we're dealing with today, and it looks like the general election in November will be a lot different as well, given the fact that even.
Well, I don't see. All right, well, let's Google that real quick. Spending limit in New York City mayoral primary. Limits and thresholds. Well, yeah, the individual donation amounts, there's that. Spending limits. Years prior to election years, 374,000. Primary election is 7.9 million, and the general election is 7.9 million. So if Cuomo has raised 20 million, then he can spend it all, or a lot of it, this election cycle. And if you're saying Zoran already did that, I mean, that's impressive. But I mean, 7.9 million, that is an unachievable number for just the layman to try and rally and organize.
Andrew Cuomo, if he were not to prevail, is going to run as an independent. That the current mayor, Eric Adams, is also running as an independent. Do you see this as, if you prevail today, to be a guarantee of victory, or you have a lot more campaigning to do in the months?
I mean, $7 million for a population of 8 million in the city, that's impressive. Like, that's almost spending $1 per person. And if he did that, that's impressive, which, don't get me wrong, that's still peanuts compared to what people are actually worth and what a lot of these elected officials take in bribes every single year. But it is interesting. It is definitely interesting to see that kind of comparison.
Ahead.
We got here by never taking any day for granted, and that's how we're going to run the rest of this race. And we're confident that we'll win the primary, and then we'll run the general in the same manner, just as hungry as New Yorkers are for a new city, a city that takes care of each and every person. And ultimately, I've been running against Eric Adams a second term from the beginning of this race, and Andrew Cuomo is running for that same term. It's the same corruption, the same donors, the same limited vision, funded by the very corporations that are benefiting from this inequality crisis in this city. And we are on the brink of defeating that second term in the primary, and we'll do it again in the general.
I wanted to ask you about the New York Times saying they weren't going to endorse anyone in this primary and then went after you. They said, "We do not believe Mr. Mamdani deserves a spot on New Yorkers' ballots. His experience is too thin. His agenda reads like a turbocharged version of Mr. de Blasio's dismaying mayoralty. As for Mr. Cuomo, we have serious objections to his ethics and conduct, even if he would be better for New York's future than Mr. Mamdani." They went after you about controlling rent. They went after you about grocery stores. Talk about what you have promised New Yorkers on all of these issues and why you think the Times is wrong. And do you actually think them going after you helps you?
You know, I think that their opinion...
I'm going to answer that question for him. Yes, it helps him. Because there is no such thing as bad publicity. Even, here's the thing. Andrew Cuomo is a convicted, well, I guess not convicted, but credibly accused sex offender and serial sexual assaulter, and he is still the front runner for the mayoral race because he was able to either ignore that, was able to push that aside, but people are still talking about him. It's the same thing with Trump. Trump is literally Hitler, or trying to be Hitler, and it's blatant. It is clear as day that the man does not know fact from fiction, reality from whatever is going on in his little mind and whatever it is people are feeding him. But people are talking about him constantly. And that's the spin, if such a thing, if you want to use those words, that's the spin of what bad publicity does for you. They talk about you. If I just started spouting the N-word, but everything else was far left leftism, like guillotines, kill them all, send them all straight to the Hague, but I just started being vehemently racist in my language, that would be good for me. That would actually be good for me. It's like, oh, that's the guy who's using the slurs but wants to make universal healthcare, education, housing, increase wages and tax billionaires. You see what I'm saying? Like, And that's the thing. I'm not going to do that. I refuse to do that. But people do. And they thrive off of it. And then they get tens of thousands of followers, make millions of dollars, and then they either just shut up or they just continue to grow their network. That's literally the alt-right growth method. Just be racist and xenophobic, throw in a couple of dog whistles, and et voila, you're Ben Shapiro.
Are those of about a dozen New Yorkers, and they certainly have the right to it. And this is an election that will be decided by closer to 1 million New Yorkers. And ultimately, I was proud that when the New York Times assembled a panel of experts, they rated our campaign
being racist.
Came to house life.
Yeah.
And those are two of the issues at the forefront of most New Yorkers' minds in this election. And ultimately, our platform has been one laser focused on that economic agenda in our promises to freeze the rent for more than 2 million rent stabilized tenants, to make the slowest buses in the country fast and free, and to deliver universal childcare. Because ultimately, these are the ways in which city government can make life that little bit easier for each and every New Yorker and finally own up to the tools that it already has, as opposed to pretend that it is merely a spectator in a suffocating cost of living crisis.
And finally, in about a minute that we have left, the last few mayoral Democratic primaries have been marked by a very low participation level. What's your sense of the turnout for this election?
I can tell you just from the early voting numbers that it is very exciting to see so many more New Yorkers
that is the right
in this
question.
process. From the beginning of this race, we've said we wanted to bring more people into our politics such that our elections look more like the city that we love. And we're seeing so many New Yorkers, be they younger New Yorkers or New Yorkers who've lived here for decades but had never registered to vote, finally seeing themselves in our politics, in our policies. And ultimately, we know the importance of this is because the democracy is not just under attack from an authoritarian administration in Washington. It's also under attack from within in a withering belief in its relevance to the struggles of everyday people. And ultimately, this race is one way in which we can show that we can actually deliver a city that New Yorkers can afford, and we can do so by building a movement the city has never seen before.
Thanks for watching Democracy
All right, so I have another question about New York City politics, because apparently I'm missing something here. If the population of New York City is over 8 million, why do they keep talking about only 1 million voters? I get that it's the primary, so is there only 1 million registered Democrats? Is that the issue? Is that the thing? Because that seems pretty low representation of a party group when it's one of the most liberal cities in the country. Okay. I've never seen people so excited about a mayoral primary in New York City. I mean, I can see why, though, because if your choice is between Hillary and, or the equivalent of Hillary and the equivalent of Trump every single year, I can only imagine no one votes in the primaries. Well, that could change. I do know certain states have registration requirements, though. For instance, you have to be a registered Democrat 18 months in advance in order to vote in the primary in California. And that might be the case in New York as well. I don't know. But I guess that answers that question. We need more people to stand up so we get more candidates who actually get it. Right. But the other thing, too, is what we really need is for people to support the candidates who are standing up and not giving a shit about experience. Here's the thing. Let's be very clear about this. We currently have the least credibly capable person in the Oval Office, period, who just appointed a 22-year-old who also has zero experience in counterintelligence as counterintelligence or counterterrorism, whichever one it was. We have Pete Hegseth, who was an alcoholic on a propaganda channel, leading the Department of Defense and leaked his own war plans through Signal, which is supposedly secure in its own right, to a journalist, right? We have the most incompetent people in power and positions of authority right now. So clearly, experience is not what we're getting in the first place. So, let's throw that out the window. Secondly, who is going to have your best interest in mind? Johnny the fucking grocer? Or, John Farquhar III, Esquire, Lord of whatever nonsense? Right. I mean, The car, I mean, my God, we had a used car dealer become a senator in Ohio, a used car dealer who fired a pregnant woman for being pregnant. Now he's a United States Senator for Ohio. So we have the shadiest people running for office, but because they're a business owner at some point in their life, we got to get them going. Or because J.D. Vance was best friends with hedge fund guys. Oh, he clearly knows what's going on. But you put, Jon Snow the farmer from Perry Tucky, nobody gives a shit. Because he also doesn't have the resources to even get his name out there. And that's the problem. We need to stop voting for people and supporting people who have resources and money, because chances are those people earned it through nefarious means, as in exploitation of the workforce. And regular workers don't have the means or the resources, so community matters. Now, I get it. Name recognition matters, and I get that, maybe in some cases it does make more sense to start small. You can't build a name if your community doesn't even know who you are, right? So start small in your community. I'm not arguing against that. I'm literally not. But what I am saying is, why wouldn't you vote for the 30-year-old state representative, that plucky representative from BFE nowhere, small town USA, saying that we're going to make our government and our state better because I see what it's like. I know what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck. I know what it's like to live in an apartment. I know what it's like to have a car payment. I know what it's like to have to pay for the damn groceries that we see every single day. Why wouldn't you vote for that 30-year-old who's like, we're going to change the entire way our economic system works in this state so that it works for the people instead of for the rich, the powerful, and corporations? Like, why would you just not de facto vote for that person? I don't understand. I personally don't understand. If I recognize the name and it's not because that there's some guy who just managed to, get an ad on my feed, I'm not voting for them. Not voting for them. Fuck you, you establishment hack. I will vote for literally anybody else to replace you. Literally. But how many of our elections go uncontested? Do you know how many judgeships go uncontested? And it's because it's the only elected position that requires a degree, a law degree. You have to be a lawyer in order to be a judge. But anybody can be a sheriff. Thank you for the follow. I could be sheriff. You could be sheriff. You could be county commissioner, county engineer. You don't even need an engineering degree. I don't believe for county engineer. But for commissioner, you certainly don't. Mayor, you certainly don't. Council, you don't. You don't need degrees to be in Congress, House, legislation, governor, any of that shit. Only for the judgeship. And they are never, ever contested. And why? Because it's damn near a mafia. If you run against the judge as a prosecutor or as a defense attorney, and that judge beats you, and they see you in their courtroom, you're fucked. Which is not the way things should be. It's not the way things should be. So why do we allow this to continue? Mary was posting stories about Maleficence similar to the 2016 presidential primaries happening today. Outstanding. I mean, the Democrats rigged their own elections. We know this. That's why I'm optimistic that Zoran, wins. I hope he does. But the reality is, the Democrats have never played fair at any point in time. They don't. They lie, cheat, and steal. Hillary Clinton won 5 coin flips in a row to win the whatever primary. Fuck off. Fuck off. No way in hell. Oh, Bernie Sanders didn't win when he was bringing stadiums to his rallies, filling full-on football stadiums. And Hillary and Biden could barely fill a parking lot, but he lost the primary. Really? Who do you fucking take us for? And then, of course, they argued in court that we're allowed to rig our own primaries because the voters shouldn't expect otherwise. So it's not like they're even hiding it. Like, yes, they are rigging their elections. So I would not expect that to be any different here. Although it is 9 o'clock, so that means the polling should be closed. Let's see if we can find some early polling results. Early polling results in my mayor primary. Latest poll. Oh wait, that. Hold on. That was a day ago. I clicked on it too quick. Live. All right, there we go.
This campaign says they knocked on over 1 million doors and worked to reach disenfranchised voters, especially those younger voters. Now, Congresswoman
we have live
AOC
feed at the bottom
and Senator
of the playlist.
Bernie Sanders really came out to support Mamdani today.
Well, damn, I'm gonna have to.
But he has received criticism for his stance on Israel. He's been critical of Israel's role in the Israel-Hamas war. Now, Mamdani broke through in the latest poll as the winner in the last round of ranked choice voting, but many experts say this race is going to be a tight one. Mamdani started campaigning at 5 a.m. this morning, and he also hit the streets with city comptroller and mayoral candidate Brad Lander. Their teams handed out water at the poll sites. Now, if All
right, so you said it's at the bottom. Drop site news, better than Fox. Let's go. 6-second unskippable ad. Let's go. Ooh, another not unskippable.
Another one who was taking a close look at this.
Why does he look like Pedro Pascal?
Zoran won the early vote by a fairly significant amount. And the expectation is, Cuomo's got to pick that up on election day, which is why he was so concerned about the heat and getting his voters to the polls, in addition to the fact that he tends to have more support among older voters, and Zoran's voters tend to be younger. So the early voting
that is surprising. And I know she's talking and it's live, so I don't want to pause it. But you would think, being an old person, you would be far more concerned with rent control and lowering grocery prices than young people. Young people have another 40 years to live. If you're old, you're on a fixed income at best. Shit, I hit pause anyway.
To come out and cast their ballots early.
Yeah, that's 100% right. The early voting effort was massive, and it was not Cuomo-mentum. It was Zoran-mentum. And yeah, I mean, the canvassing and the volunteers here, they just hit it really hard with early voting. And I mean, I think we saw Ross Barkan earlier, but Ross recently went on the Tara Palmieri show and talked just about how sort of lackluster and low energy the Cuomo campaign
from a distance,
had been.
It was really
that they were kind of phoning it in, that they weren't really reaching out a lot, and that Cuomo wasn't really doing like a ton of press. Whereas when you see the Zoran Instagram page, there are a million calls to action, ways to get people in, to canvass, to phone bank, to find your voting station, and we just haven't really seen that kind of game online with Cuomo at all. I mean, I remember, Crystal, you and me were talking about how we wanted to play some Cuomo end campaign ads, and we really couldn't find any.
There just wasn't a lot, yeah.
Like there was nothing on YouTube. I am hearing from people who live in New York that they were hitting the TV airwaves a lot, and which you don't really see on YouTube as much. So there are ads for Cuomo on TV.
We've seen it every single election where it was spicy. It'll be like, all right, we're counting them in. Oh, Biden's in the lead. Oh, an hour later. Oh, no, Trump's taking the lead. Oh, no. And then it's Biden, and then Trump and Biden and Trump. And oh, wait, now we actually have significant enough numbers to show that, oh, fuck, this is the new winner. They're probably going to do that shit with this, too. Andrew's going to start pulling ahead in the polls in the next 30 minutes, and then it's going to be Zoran, and then Cuomo, and then once it's like closer to like that 60%, and that neck and neck is no longer valid, then you're going to start seeing whoever starts pushing up is actually going to be the one.
But they're mainly attack ads on Zoran, talking about him being a socialist, talking about the businesses leaving, and there isn't really a positive message ad that I've seen yet.
So we do have some results in. This is from the New York Times website. And
the New York Times
website. Can you guys
website.
see this okay? So
yeah, we can see it.
We've got 38% of the vote in.
Wow.
You can see right now, as I said.
I mean,
before,
for the polls being closed for 5 minutes, that's a lot of counting.
Ahead. So right now he's at 43.1%. He has 177,000 votes. Cuomo is at 34%. So nearly a 9-point lead here, quite significant. And his vote total, Cuomo's vote total, is 139,000.
It could be the early voting, you're right.
95. Then you've got Brad Lander. The fact Lander picking up as many votes as he did, also encouraging, because as Ryan was saying, you have huge crossover in those later ranked choice tallies. And then next down the list is Adrian Adams. I can go ahead and expand this so we can see everybody. Scott Stringer, Zelnor Myrie, Whitney Tilson, Jessica Ramos, Michael Blake, Paperboy Love Prince.
That was my like long shot candidate.
rank him?
It's actually my pseudonym. So I don't know. I'm fingers crossed that I start rising in the polls there.
That was also Sagar's baby name. That was second on the list.
And he may have made a mistake there. That's unfortunate.
Names that start with P.
So is
I wanted to talk a little bit about the cross-endorsing
Adams,
strategy that really had worked for Zoran, but there was a video today of Cuomo in the voting booth where Cuomo only voted for himself and didn't rank anyone else. He didn't rank even his allies. He didn't rank on this list.
Does he have allies?
Well, there's I believe.
What's his
Jessica
name? He's got
Ramos.
this. He's got that, and then he's got this like person funded by a bunch of what's his name? Whitney, who was funded by.
My boy Whitney Tilson.
They're going to do it like
Whitney
sports.
Tilson just spending all race. I think, and Brooklyn, he really has to run up the numbers. Michael Lang's assessment, which is the one that I relied on the most, was saying that he expected him to be up by tens of thousands.
I mean,
after
she's
the
only
early election. I mean, after the early vote.
Right.
When is
and
the
he's
red
up by
primary?
tens of thousands right now. So kind of on track. And Lang predicted that Zoran would win by like 2,000 votes. So which means that it's basically a toss-up.
Gotcha.
And remind me.
Well, then I guess maybe the 1,000 votes does matter.
Have they already counted the early ballots? Are those being factored into the numbers that we were just looking at, or are they just starting to count those as the polls close?
He might know.
These are the early.
I suspect these are the early ballots.
Are these the early ballots? Do you know
said.
the stuff that's coming in right now?
No, the numbers that the Board of Education has been putting out are the combined numbers from early voting and the voting today. So we were at 930,000 as of 7:30 p.m. with 1.5 hours to go. Last time it was 942,000. So it's
we're talking about the tallies.
The results now.
Oh, the tallies coming in right now. These might be the early ballots.
Yeah, I think these are the early ballots.
Counted. But the interesting thing is that if you look at the numbers, Bronx is far lower. Now, from 2021, let me just pull up some of these facts from 2021, which shows
this guy's
how
like, I'm going to get my 5
racially
seconds of
divided
fame,
the voter turnout
motherfuckers.
Can be. The 10 community districts in New York with the lowest turnout in 2021's primary election were all majority-minority places, meaning a majority of the voters were non-white. And you compare that, you contrast that, of the 10 districts with the highest turnout.
Have they never done this before?
Election, 7 were majority white. The top 5 highest turnout districts were all majority white. Now, why am I boring you with all this racial demographic data? It's because, as per all the polls, Zoran Mamdani is leading heavily over Andrew Cuomo in under 45 white voters. So, if white voters turn out in larger numbers, that might be seen as a positive for Zoran. Among black voters, several polls place Cuomo ahead of Mamdani. But in the Bronx, where you have large numbers of black voters, those are the places that have traditionally voted in very low turnouts.
Good to know.
Before, I think in a couple.
My name is Tom Holman.
Oh, really? We're doing ads on a live stream?
Trump, and I'm here to ask America.
But before we do that, Ryan, I just wanted to get your sense of, this race has captured
okay, well,
a lot of
we're not going to just listen to them
Obviously,
banter.
We are not a New York City news broadcast. We are a global program. Actually, like 40% of our audience
the
is
early
international,
thing
but I don't know if you
definitely
guys see
favors.
this But, this has captured people's attention.
Well, let's.
A lot of them, yes.
Why is that guy doing it? I don't freaking know.
We have a lot of Indians too because soccer brings that college. So we've, a real meeting of all
South
sorts
Asians were killing it. Yeah.
All sorts of cultures. In any case, what do you think that this race will say about the future of the Democratic Party, about the current?
Okay, there we go. Go away. Okay, even if you go to YouTube, and you do this week, it's all Iran, where Democrats offer only incoherent chaos and nihilism. Trump presents solutions. Okay, so we got that going as well, it seems. But it's all Iran. I walked. So as president, I will not mock sovereign heads of state and their nation's name. I sincerely promise to not do that. I can't actually promise that. I'll probably find a way to make a pun. It's like, man, I'm glad I made it to this meeting. I ran all the way from here to this press conference. Speaking of which, the Ayatollah is here with us today, and and then I'm shot. And it would be completely justified. I mean, look at this. This is all Iran. This is all Iran. The nuclear strikes. And that's not the only shit that has happened in America. Okay, so U.S. public shootings. Like, gunman killed after shooting into Michigan church. I think that was the one that we were talking about earlier today. A family getting hit. That sucks. That's a year ago. So we don't have that. U.S. News about the big beautiful bill. I guess they're not shorthanding it. Big beautiful bill. Why would you autocorrect? Whatever. White House takes questions, lays out timeline. That's Fox. Can we have it from not Fox? Oh, here we go.
Senator from Vermont. There is time to kill this bill, and I hope we do. You know,
drop all the votes into a machine that's like a counting machine at the back. I don't understand why it's not instantaneous and live. Like, here's the thing, right? We have these electronic... Okay, no. One step further. If Twitter polls are secure and unable to be hacked and altered, if Facebook polls are unable to be hacked or altered, if TikTok polls are unable to be hacked and altered, I get that this is social media, but if that technology already exists and it's impossible to impact as an individual those results, why the fuck are we not integrating that into our electoral processes? Why are we using these expensive machines owned by private entities who are being lobbied by or lobbying elected officials to garner and curry their favor, which is going to only result in questioning the validity of those elections in the first place? Why are we even messing with this shit? Why can't we just do a Facebook poll? Like, honestly, I not literally Facebook, but like, why couldn't we do something along those lines? It would be live. You wouldn't have to count it after the fact. And honestly, and hear me out, it's one of the primary arguments in favor of cryptocurrency. And of course, now with the technology increasing to quantum encryption, for that technology, if we could just invest in quantum encryption, for instance, like we could just do live polling updates, but we'll never do that at this rate because there isn't money to be made in doing things the right way. We need to do things differently. This is bullshit. Like, why? If I did a poll right now okay, that's not a good example. If Hassan did a poll right now, he couldn't change the numbers on that poll on Twitch. He couldn't do it. And it's Hassan, one of the most popular streamers of all time. Asmongold, as much as he's a shitbag that has no business talking about politics. If he did a poll, he could not influence those numbers. He could not do it. I mean, he could be like, all right, guys, vote yes. And people would because, reasons. But realistically, a poll like that on social media is inalterable. Why the hell is our electoral process not that efficient? Just food for thought.
Infliction of bipartisan suffering, whether it's in the state of Vermont or the state of West Virginia.
Bernie was on Rogan's podcast. I mean,
Tennessee, folks who
he's
are
sold out at this point.
Are going to lose it. Let me just give a couple of examples. When I was in the House, my good friend David McKinley, Republican,
David
Invited me to
McKinley
West
was your
Virginia.
friend, buddy.
And we went to the Harrison coal mine. And I was very deeply moved because the only people I know who work as hard as coal miners are dairy farmers. So we have a lot in common. Hard-working folks in Vermont, hard-working folks in West Virginia. But what this bill is going to do is threaten the access to health care that those West Virginia folks need, just like those folks in Vermont need, just like those folks in Tennessee need.
I mean, Peter Welsh, you're saying all the right things, but you're putting me to sleep. The bill is finally being debated. It's actually being read now, which is good. And it's being held up in the Senate, which is also good because 100 senators with not a rubber stamp agenda for this administration is a good thing. Now, granted, it's still a majority in the favor of the Republicans. But the fact of the matter is that there is debate. There is discussion, but it's being drowned out in the news in favor of Iran and all this other bullshit. We need to be talking about how your healthcare is getting eviscerated. Okay? You don't get Medicare. You don't get Medicare. You don't. But Medicare pays for every single bit of healthcare in this country. And honestly, we already have universal healthcare because guess what? Medicare already covers every bit of healthcare in this country. The only reason why we don't have universal healthcare is because insurance companies exist to extort money from the patient and prevent the hospital from getting it. But actually, the hospital does get the money because Medicaid pays for the baseline cost of the procedure. Insurance just upcharges it so they can get a cut, and hospitals upcharge it so that they can get a greater cut and pay their boards lots and lots and lots of money. If we actually had publicly owned healthcare, as in it wasn't for profit, Medicare would already solvently provide healthcare without raising or changing the tax code in the slightest, which, by the way, is my policy. Eradicate privatization altogether from healthcare. Period. Dot. We will federalize all healthcare and pharmaceuticals in the United States of America. Insurance is out the window. Your insurance is now Medicare and Medicaid because that's what you're already fucking paying for. And that's what hospitals are already relying upon in order to function. And all of those admin positions, sucks to suck, nerd, you're going to have to do something else within the federal government that's administrative, which I hear the IRS has been gutted lately, and they could use some help with, I don't know, going after white-collar criminals. Seems to me like a win-win. So anywho, that's the long and the short of that. What else do we got? Okay, so let's try U.S. news. Not Iran. I don't think that's how that's gonna work. I don't know how to search apparently. Well, Iran's in there. U.S. news this week. Still Iran. Nothing even about walking. I can't believe it. U.S. monetary policy. That one should impact and concern everyone.
Salad. Try it on our
Why are these ads that are 6 seconds so damn long? Like this feels way more than 6 seconds. It feels like 1,000. 1,000. Not 1, 2, 3.
Industrial grade products you need. Great.
Like shut the fuck up. Ooh, 2 hours? No. 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 I'm a political junkie, and everybody in chat is a political junkie, but ooh. Live. How is it live? We got to wait until July 1st when the primary results are announced? That doesn't make sense. Huh? So July 1st, an unofficial report will be released that includes mail ballots scanned before Election Day. Candidates are declared the winner if they receive more than 50% of first choice votes. The final result in ranked choice elections will not be known until all ballots are counted. So it could be up to some point in July. That's pretty gnarly. Well, yeah, I mean, that's what it said, July 1st. Could be potentially how long that takes. Well, let's go back then to the playlist. Did they cover that? Why isn't it letting me do the playlist? I have definitely changed whatever's written in here. Come on. Why am I such a boomer? Unless he's winning by a lot. Yeah, I guess that's the thing. And that's the thing too, right? Like the Democrats could rig the election. So it's Cuomo won with 51%. It dems the ropes. He got all the first choice votes. Oh. And I really hope New York City riots after that. Because yeah, like that would be egregious. With all of the popularity and the surge leading up to the election, for him to just mysteriously lose at the 11th hour would be pretty questionable. So let's try this one again. Really? Ads right off the rip?
On these sorts of things because he foregrounds that, and that is so core to his identity. People are willing to be like,
okay,
whatever.
So now they're talking about Joe Rogan. Okay,
it's okay.
Well,
I'm not. And in fact, Zoran, one of the lines that he uses in the campaign,
are these?
I don't remember.
Is one of these breaking points, and the other one drop?
Like, you know, would be ridiculous. Basically, if you agree with me on every.
And that isn't running. So okay. We should know something tonight, though. Otherwise, they wouldn't be covering it live. I mean, that's not true. Like, the presidential election has to be pretty much live and that same day because it's a big fucking deal, right? It's the big deal. But the New York City, like, they might not treat it the same way. All right.
Right now,
let's see what happened. Let's see what this video is about.
The Trump administration, after they say federal agents showed up at Dodger Stadium, the Dodgers say ICE agents showed up.
Oh, this is still about the Dodger Stadium?
Lots, but the Dodgers turned them away, concerned that they were going to do a raid. But the Department of Homeland Security says those agents were not from ICE, and they say this wasn't related to the immigration crackdown that's roiled Los Angeles and sparked protests since earlier this month. So how do Americans feel about this back and forth over the administration's immigration policy? CNN's Harry Enton, our data guru, is running the numbers for us this morning. Where are we?
Where are we? Well, I think we can say that Donald Trump has lost the political battle when it comes to what has happened out in Los Angeles. Donald Trump's net approval rating on the Los Angeles process. Look at this. Overall, way underwater at minus 15 points. How about among independents or those who don't identify with either major party?
Okay, so what is this CNN trying to do a victory lap? Like, okay, I guess since there's uncertainty about the content that we're getting today, and because we weren't able to get anything that wasn't about Iran, I guess I'll have to acapella this shit, yo. So, with all of that being said, the Democrats and their liberal news sources are trying to treat the fact that people loathe Donald Trump and his Nazi behavior as something to celebrate, whilst doing nothing about it. For instance, what is AOC doing? The easiest low-hanging fruit out there. What is AOC doing? What is Bernie Sanders doing? What are these two individuals doing? Are they filing impeachment documents? Are they calling for investigations and oversight committees? Are they doing hearings? Are they initiating investigations? Are they calling for arrests? Are they calling for recalls? Right? Appointees, can appointees be recalled? Off the top of my head, not certain, but I would imagine they could be. Could they be overwritten? For instance, could they file lawsuits against the administration, tie up the courts some more? I mean, any number of things. They've gotten arrested for going to ICE detention facilities. So why don't they bring their own federal agent escort or military escort? I don't really care at that point. I'm just saying the things that we are seeing being done are just, oh, honey, why are you so mad? I'm just a silly little barista from New York City. Tee-hee. You're just this, why are you mad at me when you should be mad at your own peers for yelling at you? How is that winning anything? How is that serving the purpose? How is that representing your government or your country or your people? Again, if I were a congressman, there's only like 3 things that I would be doing, and all of them would be varying degrees of aggression, right? I would either A, be kicking down the doors of ICE facilities and fighting the agents and making them beat me into unconsciousness while shouting, I have the right to be here. I am a congressman. I will fight for my countrymen, and I will fight for human rights, regardless if they're here legally or not, right? So that's the first thing I would do. The second thing I would be doing is spending every waking moment on the congressional floor demanding his impeachment, resignation, and the resignation of everybody in every single agency that we just appointed. I would have obviously voted against all of the appointments, but I would call for their removal regardless. That would be the second thing I'd be doing. And the third thing I'd be doing is, even though it's against my better judgment, I would probably be going to those protests where officers are firing upon protesters, and I would make sure that it is eminently known that I am a congressman or senator or whatever rank I would have been, and be like, shoot me then. Don't worry about these protesters exercising their rights. Go ahead and shoot me. That's what I would be doing. And of course, fighting them too, and forcing them to not fight me into unconsciousness. Like, there is any number of things that are both symbolic and functional that could be done by a sitting senator and a sitting congressman. Like, there is, slay, and doing reels and being cheeky and getting likes. What? But going to the rallies and being like, don't like Trump? Vote for Democrats. We will do functionally nothing. Your material conditions will not change, but we're cool. Like, I'm not understanding this in the slightest. I truly do not grasp how we have 435 congressmen and 100 senators, around half of which are Democrats, 100% of which are pretending as if they don't actually have the power or the authority granted by the Constitution, existing in the 25th Amendment verbatim and explicitly, but implied in the 9th Amendment. All of the powers that do not belong to the states and the federal government respectively belong to the people. Bruh. The 25th Amendment. Like, let's read that. Let's read that for a quick second. I'm not actually familiar with the full language of the 25th Amendment, but I don't want the simple terms. Full language. Jesus, I have to jump through hoops just to find this answer here. Okay. So apparently there's several sections, and I'm not gonna, maybe I will read it all. Section 1. In case of the removal of the president from office or of his death or resignation, the vice president shall become president. Don't know why that needed to be an amendment. Wasn't that implied in the Constitution? But, whatever. Section 2. Whenever there is a vacancy in the office of the vice president, the president shall nominate a vice president who shall take office upon confirmation by a majority vote of both houses of Congress. Reasonable, but again, I thought that was already in the Constitution, but, whatever. I'm just some guy. Section 3. Whenever the president transmits to the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives his written declaration that he is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, and until he transmits to them a written declaration to the contrary, such powers and duties shall be discharged by the vice president as acting president. Okay, so that's the one where he can choose to do it on his own. So, here's the fun part, and probably why this isn't actually happening. Whenever the vice president and a majority of either the principal officers of the executive departments or of such other body as Congress may by law provide, transmit to the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House their written declaration that the president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, the vice president shall immediately assume the powers and duties of the office of acting president. Okay, cool. So, okay, the 25th can't be invoked because J.D. Vance would have to betray Trump, and then all of the cabinet members would also have to betray Trump, which is another reason why loyalty matters so much to the MAGA administration, because it avoids the legal quandaries of the 25th. All right. So they can't invoke the 25th because of corruption, which is against the law. Also, I mean, we could turn the last 28. Thank you for the follow, Nepal. We could turn the last 28 minutes of this into a constitutional discourse, college class 101 about how, okay, fine, we can't do the 25th Amendment because he is not going to render himself that he is unable to discharge him, right? He's not going to do that on his own. And J.D. Vance isn't going to betray the president or MAGA because that's suicide politically, right? And also the cabinet members, it would also be political suicide for them. So we can talk about how, well, corruption's against the law, so is bribery, so is taking money and resources from foreign powers, and then acting upon the whims of a foreign state. That's the actual definition of treason, by the way. U.S. Constitution definition of treason, because otherwise, right, in kingdoms, monarchies, and dictatorial regimes, treason is whatever the fuck the person in power says it is. But in the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution defines treason in Article 3, Section 3, as levying war against them or in adhering to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort. And what could be more adhering to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort, than giving billions of dollars to Israel to commit human rights violations and war crimes to every single one of their neighbors in the Middle East? Like, that is the verbatim definition of treason. And AIPAC is an agent of the Israeli state. I don't give a flying fuck what anybody says, to include AIPAC. The facts are in their actions. So why on God's green earth, in these United States of America, e pluribus unum, is Congress not invoking literally the treason article, Section 3? Like, that's an option. Okay. We can't 25th Trump because of the loyalty issue. Cool. We can Article 3, Section 3 him to hell and back. Oh, wait, that's going to also encompass every member of the Supreme Court, every member of Congress, the House, and the Senate. It's going to indict every single governor, every single state legislator, every mayor of a major city. It's just going to decimate our entire political landscape. Then we fucking should decimate our entire political landscape if it's just a proxy for Israel. What? Like, maybe I'm just not smart enough to see the big fifth dimensional chess that's actually going on. And it's like, well, it's a good thing that we're manipulated by Israel. Okay, explain it to me like I'm 5 then. That's the average reading level of Americans anyway. So if you can explain it to me like a 5-year-old, every other American will understand it too. So let's go. But they can't, because the idea is it's just complicity. Like, if we go after them for treason, we're going to get it. If we go after them for the Epstein files, we're going to get it. If we go after them for bribery and corruption, well, then we're going to get it too. And we don't want to lose our power at the expense of Trump. Bruh. Like, this is why we need a president with the testicular and spinal fortitude, and actually, not the kinds of skeletons in the closets that result in Epstein flight log lists. Like, am I a perfect human being? No, I've been an asshole. I've been a misogynist. I grew up in a rural white town. I had some very ignorant views of the world. I was never racist, but I was like, I knew there was more diversity in this country. I knew it. I have said some dumb things that should have gotten my ass kicked, but they're like, oh, he's a white boy from a rural town. Okay, we get it. Like, I'm not, devoid of fallacies, right? Like, I'm not a perfect person. I'm very imperfect. I have anger issues. Obviously, my solutions to most of our problems involve a device that was invented in 1798, used by the French to deal with their problems of authoritarianism. So, I mean, I am not a peace and love kind of guy. I thoroughly, wholeheartedly believe in the use of the death penalty. 1000% it has its place in society, and it begins with traitors, and it ends with corrupt politicians and officers and agents of the state and CEOs who are literally boiling our oceans and melting our ice caps for profit. I mean, there's plenty of 1780 or 1798 to go around, is all I'm saying. So, anyway, I guess I went on my soliloquy a little bit too long. What do we got here? Taking a victory lap less than 17 months, when we all know how people have attention spans of a goldfish. You should give yourself a pat on the back. Zoran has this good chance thanks to over 200 followers listening to you. By the way, what's up with your finger? You either have a splint or a pulse monitor. So, I'm what's known as neurospicy, right? And that means I need to be doing something with my hands. And I'm not Italian enough to talk with my hands. So I resort to this, or something like it, which will be really hilarious. It's like, my fellow Americans, I am addressing you all today to talk about the very serious problems that we are facing. And before I continue, read my... No more... Damn it. So, like, that's what we're going to see. We're going to see a lot of that. I'm probably going to have, like, Secret Service or somebody being like... And then I'm going to look at them. I'm going to be like, did you just assault the President of the United States? Sir, we've been over this. No, you would be like Marsone's wife, just straight up face smacking me. We can't diminish the American moneymaker here, okay? The presidency, like if I'm just getting beaten by my chief of staff on national, international television. So suffice to say, politically speaking, I mean, governance shouldn't be as complex and complicated as we are making it out to be. The only reason why we don't have clean energy, the only reason why we don't have enough food and resources to sustain every single citizen and non-citizen in America is because there are too many hands in the kitty, too many hands in the pot, and too many people trying to profit off of the same problem all at once, trying to split those profits but maximizing them at the same time. Here's the thing, and it's going to sound very socialist, very communist of me, but at the end of the day, government is public, it is social, it is communal. Like, that is the whole purpose of a government, is to organize resources of a given state or a given entity, right? If we're talking about towns, tribes, whatever, right? A nation is an entity that has a state that it must manage and maintain. So why aren't we doing it the most efficiently way possible? Like, why is it not publicly owned with extreme transparency so that the efficiency can be mandated? right? All of this privatization refuses to acknowledge efficiency because profit matters more than efficiency. They say efficiency makes more profit, but the proof is obviously not there. Efficiency just means they get to profit more efficiently off of our labor rather than having that go through to the people. They are plundering our resources, both natural, physical, mental, and emotional. I guess that's not both, that's including. But you get where I'm going with this. Like, the universal programs make more sense economically because they are then publicly owned, controlled, and operated instead of privately with no oversight or accountability. If you can't hold accountability or have oversight over an entity, then that is by default inefficient and by default tyrannical and oppressive, right? Because if an entity can act with impunity, then that means they can act with impunity, which we have seen with law enforcement, which we are seeing with ICE, where they are masking themselves and kidnapping people off the street in broad fucking daylight and then trafficking them to God knows where. Literally, God knows where. We do not know where some of these people are, but we do know that there are some Americans in El Salvador in the death camp, the one that's actually known for murdering people. So it's just, if you open that door even an inch, it eventually gets kicked wide open, because over time, the velocity of power and corruption is absolute. So why wouldn't we try and create the velocity of support, which should also be absolute? If we can be absolutely communal based and absolutely empathetic to our neighbors and our community members, we all thrive. We all thrive, not just survive. Like, that's the point of a government. And that would be the point of my administration, is e pluribus unum, united we stand. And actually, I because I am a Latin nerd, I wanted to add something. E pluribus sumus est unum. Out of many, we become one. I believe that is the correct Latin translation of that. So, e pluribus sumus est unus, or unum. All right, hold up a second here. Latin to English. Latin. E pluribus sumus est unum. You are one? No, I mean, est. Sumus estis sunt? For many. Wow, Google Translate is sucking right now. Out of many, we become one. That's what I'm trying to say. So let's try it this way. Out of many, we become one. Oh, well, that's interesting. I guess according to Google Translate, ex multis unum fimus. Now that sounds pretty fucking rad. Ex multis unum fimus. I like it. Out of many, we become one. That's pretty slick. I wonder if there are other iterations of that. Evidently not. But I'm saving that. I'm saving that, chat, because that is sick. Where should I save that at? I have so many different like notepads that I save. Is that gonna open? Apparently he's a misogynistic POS. Who's that? Waltz, the former director of intelligence, is because he wasn't asked Trump's chief of staff. I'm surprised that's why they would get rid of him. Trump is a multiple convicted rapist. So why would harassing a female in the administration all of a sudden be a problem for them? That's the dumbest thing I've ever fucking heard. Next, you're going to say alcoholism is a bad look, too, for the administration, so we got to fire some other guy, but leave Pete Hegseth in charge of the Department of Defense? Like, come on. He wasn't harassing her. He was treating her badly, and that is his chief of staff. Oh. Okay, but that goes back to loyalty then, and then it has nothing to do with misogyny. It's loyalty. If you're not loyal to the supreme leader, then get fucked. All right. So we had a little bit of fun there. I actually like ex multis unum fimus. That sounds a lot cooler than e pluribus unum. Like, don't get me wrong. That is our official motto, e pluribus unum. But pluribus, E doesn't have that much to it. E pluribus unum. I like the unum. But if you say ex multis unum fimus, okay, let's chant this. Ex multis unum fimus, ex multis unum fimus, ex multis unum fimus, ex multis unum fimus, Sephiroth. I'm just saying, that's a little bit cooler. Just a little bit cooler. And if you chant it the right way with the right amount of syllables in it, and you throw Sephiroth in there, all of a sudden you have one of the most badass vocals and music compilations you could ever have. Zoran is winning with 81% of votes counted. Ooh, shit. Is that on the thing? Is that on the live?
We ran a promotion cutting the price of mint.
Are you saying that I do not have the voice of a one-winged angel?
And it was so...
I like you, Ryan Reynolds, but...
The attacks on Zoran, accusing him of being an anti-Semite, and, what it means. This very clear...
hold up.
Call elections, but I think we're getting very close.
Where's the screen? Oh, there it was. 81% of votes in, and Zoran is the lead. It looks to be about 8.1%, if I'm doing my math correctly. I mean, unless Andrew Cuomo has all of the rest of the votes, I don't think he wins this. I don't think he can. Doesn't this kind of prove that Zoran won? Why aren't they calling it? Usually when 81% of the votes are in and it's a shutout like this, they usually fucking call it. So let's see if they called it.
In New York.
What do you... Oh, sorry, DC. We're not in DC. We're in New York.
New York City.
What are you seeing?
Huge showing for Zoran tonight. Honestly, I am taken aback by how large a lead he has. What?
Okay, so they're not calling it. Okay, then allow me to call it. I, Samuel Ronan, 48th President of the United States, declare Zoran Mamdani the winner of the Democratic primary election for mayor of New York City with 81% of votes counted and an 8% lead over Andrew Cuomo. Bam. I mean, I guess with 19% left to go, I guess there's the possibility for an upset. But considering at 31%, he had a 9% lead, and at 81% with 50% more of the votes counted, he's down to an 8% lead. There is no realistic expectation that the remaining 19% of the votes are so heavily skewed in favor of Andrew Cuomo that he just miraculously closes that 9-point gap. And here's the other thing, too. So this gap, right? There's multiple candidates that are involved. There's 877,000 that are reported, and it was expected that there was going to be 950,000 to 1 million people voted. So, and that's 81% of votes in. So if we just do the quick calculator math, 87,682 divided by 0.81 would give us 1.08 million voters. And if we subtract that by the 877,682, that would mean 205,000 voters are left to be counted. So out of those 205,000 voters, there has been a very consistent lead with Zoran having a 9 to 8% lead throughout all of this. So again, unless they're doing the cheeky thing where they make it look like Zoran's going to win and then and then count all of Cuomo's at the very end to give it an upset for views, likes, and follows, there is no mathematical way in which this precedent gets overwritten by these remaining 205,000 votes. It's possible, obviously, but realistically, it just doesn't seem to be the case. And then you have to go into the further thing. If there's already a 43.8% first round in favor of Zoran, right? He needs his 50%. It doesn't look like he's going to get that in the first round. He would need a majority of those 205,000 for that. Because, well, 50% of 1.08 million. Why won't you let me click on it? There we go. Times 0.501, I guess. I don't know. He would need 542,000 votes, which out of the, what did we say, 205,000 that are left, he would need to have over 158,000 of them. So I don't see that happening either. I don't see him getting 3/4 of the remaining votes that are left, right? So that being said, it's a huge, huge showing and a great turnout for Zoran that he's leading. He doesn't have the outright win, but he's leading significantly enough to where he gave it a good first round effort. Now, again, the polls have him winning in the 8th and final round, but also the person in third place probably has more Zoran supporters too, right? So, I mean, if you added Brad Lander, if, for instance, Brad were to declare that he dropped out, I think his number one pick, if those are the number one picks, the first round, if everybody who voted for Brad voted for Zoran as number 2, it's a wrap. That would be 55.5% right then and there. There is no coming back from that. So the question becomes, does Brad Lander hang in there for the entire first round, or does he bail out and transfer his votes to Zoran? Or is that even how the ranked choice works in New York? Because I'm not certain that it is. The person who said, oh, Zoran believes bad stuff and the opposite of what we believe. I did not, but Cuomo was only ahead in the polls in the Bronx and Staten Island. Those two boroughs had the lowest turnout. Oh, well, there you have it. Maybe Zoran will get people joining him like Blue Overlord has had when Blue Overlord quit. Maybe. I don't think it works like that. It probably doesn't. That's how it should work, I guess, is what I'm saying. But, that's the other thing, too, about democracy. For being the longest democracy in the world, it's not been the most functional democracy in the world. It's been quite dysfunctional. We only have 2 major parties, while every other functional democracy in the world has like 7 or 8 major parties. Now, sure, there might be consolidation amongst those parties. Take Germany, for example. The AfD has swallowed up every single conservative movement in their country, and now they're dominating with like 20%. That's disgusting. But it's huge in Germany, but it's disgusting outright. Largely because it's Germany. But the point that I wanted to make there is we only have 2 major political parties that can determine our destiny at any given time in politics. And that's a problem. That is a huge fucking problem. And it contributes to literally all of the issues that we are currently dealing with politically. So, all of which is to say, oh, wow, look at that. I managed to ad-lib our way for those last 30 minutes. Look at that. And my throat is only mildly dying on me, which means I probably need to talk more often during these streams. I guess I'm not a good streamer because I'm not talking about myself the whole damn time. or being as engaging as I should be. Mea culpa. Look at me just throwing out the Latin left, right, and center. So on that note, though, it is 10-ish. Well, close enough. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully Zoran wins. Hopefully we find out before July 1st. And if not, well, tomorrow we will be able to cover all of the Iran, all of the Israel, all the foreign policy that we want, because that seems to be what's the only thing in the news anyway. So we'll be able to cover all of that in excruciating detail tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to having y'all join us tomorrow at 7. And yeah, have a great night and take care.